My name is FlowTrace. You can check me out at twitch.tv/FlowTrace, twitter.com/FlowTrace, and I am in and around the Twitch politics space. Unmasked, you may or may not know me as the VTuber llama from Fortnite, but new year, new me, and I am happy to finally be here, Tiberius. I have a lot of admiration for you as well, and finally, glad that I was finally able to get on here.
All right, thank you very much. Our producer, Jacanadar, is the empty seat in the corner up there. He's been helping me out a lot with this particular episode. He may be moderating. I might jump into the ring myself. I don't know. It depends on how this panel is going to go. We've got a lot of personality here, so either it's going to be great and I'm going to want to fight, or it's going to be great and I want to get high. I don't know which one it's going to be yet, but we'll see there.
Why not both?
Sometimes fighting and being high doesn't go very well, but yeah. All right, next. He is a Canadian from the great province in Nova Scotia. He is a friend of ours and has been there to basically bring down the right to a degree where we find it tenable. Our good friend Joseph is here. It's good to see you, Layman. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. My name is Layman. I'm Canadian. That's it. I'm here to imperialize the panel of all these American cucks. I'm just kidding. I love Americans, so I love America.
Doesn't everybody?
Although we didn't get the suit jacket today. We did not get the maple leaf jacket today, unfortunately.
I can go get it.
No, we're good. I'm just giving you shit.
So, Layman, when is Nova Scotia putting in its application for statehood?
Never. And if it ever happens, it's going to be the last place. That's for sure.
Nova Scotia would put in
actually no.
Independence before they put in statehood. Just saying.
Yeah.
I figured the last would be Quebec. But moving on, we have a doctor in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, Socrates has joined us once again. It's been a while. I think you were here for like episode 3. But it's great to have you back, sir. I noticed that you really, or at least from what I tell, you're not on a lot of panels. And so it's a pleasure to have you on this particular panel. Bring in that spicy, I cannot say it.
You can say spicy. No, that's okay.
You're a little spicy, but you bring all the brain droppings. It's great, right? You just drop the factoids. I've lost my announcer ability today. I don't know why I've done this. But anyway, Socrates, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me here at Socrates TV. Twitter, Real Socrates. I do have a YouTube channel, Real Socrates as well. I haven't put anything up yet. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I started streaming during the pandemic when all this Twitch politics shit was like really popping off, and I've been busy doing a PhD, finished that last year, doing cancer research. So I'm excited to be here. Tyberius D, a really good friend of mine, and I must say, fucking FlowTrace, your hair is so majestic. Yeah. It's even more majestic than a llama. So I'm just wowed. This is an exciting day.
I have been dethroned.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's true. Socrates, it is great to have you back here, and hopefully we can see you return a little bit more. But if you can't, we respect that. Touching grass as the real doctor live. So
yeah, it's been rough. I've been touching a lot of grass. Not too much involved in like Twitch drama. It's been hard, but trying to get back into it.
In all fairness, most of the time, if it isn't here, it's probably cancer. So let's just be real.
I was having this conversation with one of the other guys I produce for, and he was talking about, I want to have this panel. He started listing people off, and I'm like, are you trying to have cancer? Are you trying to give yourself multiple forms of cancer in a single night? Because it was like the who's who of drama, and I'm just like, fuck.
All right, next. He is a good friend. We haven't seen him for quite a bit. He used to be known as Your Environment Seattle, but he has now morphed that down into Soyaddle, coming to us from the great city of Seattle. How you doing, sir? My nuclear expert. I'm sorry. How are you? Introduce yourself.
I'm super. Thanks for asking. I've been busy ruining my life and rebuilding it from scratch. You know what? It's fine. I'm surviving. I'm doing great. I got about 12 miles on my electric moped range. I keep upgrading it. I keep messing with it. I keep doing all sorts of other stuff, working professional broadcast here and there, and looking for new stuff. I broadcast, of course, here right on twitch.tv at Soyaddle. You can also find my work at the Seattle Online Broadcasters Association and on YouTube at the Eco-Modernist channel live every Saturday. No, sorry, that's today. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, where tomorrow we're going to talk to Daniel Chen about how we must abolish Section 123 of the NRC Code in order to free the world from American anti-nuclear hegemony.
Oh, this will be an interesting topic. Definitely go check that out, ladies and gentlemen. Last but not least, we have the Mind of Z. You can check him out on DLive, among other places, but largely over there. So it's great to have you here, sir. Please introduce yourself and where people can find you.
I'm the Mind of Z, and you can find me on twitch.tv/the Mind of Z or Twitter, the Mind of Z too. So, and also check out my role because Twitch hates me.
All right, fair enough. And of
I'm
course,
on
you all know
DLive
who
too. Thorium252.
Is that really your username? That is base as fuck. All right. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think you all know who I am. I'm Tyberius D, and I'm proud to bring you this particular program. Without further ado, topics. Well, see, we had a problem. I couldn't get on the ball of actually throwing out the topics and letting people like dissect it from there. So we just kind of had a mishmash, bounce it around or whatever. And we've definitely agreed on the first topic, which is probably going to be some iteration of banking reform. Now, hopefully this isn't a circle jerk. We all get together and agree on absolutely everything. But there's some people that are a little bit more capitalistic than others. And so without further ado, I'm going to start it off with Cypher.
Am I muted? No, okay.
Nope,
Sorry.
you're
I thought I was muted. All right. So banking reform. If I had a magic wand, fractional reserve, go away. No, I'm just kidding. If I had a magic wand, we'd bring back at least Stiegel, and it's probably lower the capital threshold as far as what is banks are and are not systemically risky, but some other things in there as well. I'm sure we can get into debates, but I am pro more banking reform, not less. So there you go.
Just to make a moderator's note here, I want to get into asking the panel this question as part of the intro. What do you think caused this particular banking crash? We've had 3 now go out within, the last 2 weeks? Is this...
So you want that in the
mismanagement?
intro?
Yes.
All
Is
right.
that mismanagement, greed, what have you? Cypher, please answer that question before I pass it on.
Yeah, so in my opinion, what we are seeing is a partial contagion of the crypto market because a lot of these banks are involved in crypto to one degree or another as far as lending and creating things like that. Silvergate, SVB, and what was the other one? The not Credit Suisse, although they were involved in crypto too, but the other American bank, I can't remember the name of it right now. But that's not the primary reason. The primary reason for this is mostly the fact that these banks had a massive amount of uninsured deposits from many, many, many companies, and that gave risk to a larger financial meltdown should those companies not have been able to make payroll on Monday when it collapsed. My perfect example of this is Etsy. Etsy handled all their banking transactions through SVB, not only their employees, but also the people that they did business with, so the middle people that sold on there. And if Etsy suddenly could not process payments, that would probably cause a freak out throughout the entire U.S. financial system. So there you have it.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to move it to the Mind of Z next.
So I think partially it was a misplacement and also just greedy fuckers who, people being greedy as always. And I am pro less bank reformation. So yeah.
All right, thank you, sir. I will move it to Flowtrace next.
Banks are awesome. I love banks so much. And a great thing about banks is the fact that they're not guaranteed. There's risk associated with them. And if it's going to be the case that even past $250,000, we're just always going to be insuring deposits, especially if you are a sufficiently sized bank, then the rules have to change. It's just not an acceptable deal that banks are allowed to basically have these guarantees on their deposits, even past what is legally guaranteed, and can then use it to, essentially gamble. Gambling is fine. Gambling is great, and if they want to do that, more power to them. But the idea that banking should be risk-free, I don't think fits within our current model of banking. And if banks want that to be the case, then we've got to go back to the table and renegotiate. So if banks want to have these kinds of guarantees, then we need more regulation. But if not, that's fine. But we've got to stop this ridiculous system of constant bailouts.
Oh,
Ooh, spicy. Well, Soyoto, you're up next anyway, so go for it.
oh, great. Oh my God. I'm glad that I didn't let Socrates or Layman trump me on this one because it's so obvious. None of you actually know the cause of this failure, all just soying out about crypto, like virtue signaling lefties. It is so fucking soy to blame this on crypto. The risk profiles, the depositors don't have anything to do with the crash. SVB was actually well managed in their risk. The problem is that there was hidden risk coming from dun 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 the US government, the Fed. That's right, the Fed is the reason that you can blame what's happening, especially what happened with the bank run on SVB. That's because SVB was holding a lot of Fed bonds from the US government at a very, very low interest rate. That's right, low interest rates. And so when the Fed keeps raising rates because the Democrats are chasing economic stability, they're so scared of inflation that they're risking the stability of the entire banking system in order to bail it out. And so we're bailing out the economy by depressing consumer spending using higher interest rates of the banking system so that consumers will save. And so then the banks are upside down in their bonds so that you've got toxic assets from the US government. And so the new bonds are a huge, great deal. So no one wants the old bonds. And they got to sell them at a loss. That's exactly, you read anything about this, that's exactly what happens. Really, it's multiplying the risk by raising interest rates too quickly at the Fed. And we just had a shit sandwich. We just had to ride out a bit more inflation. I'm sorry. That's what it is. The Fed's corrupt, has to be, just kidding. We actually know how the Fed works. It's right there. You can just read about it. And so, yeah, this is the problem. This is where the risk multiplication came from. On paper, SVB didn't do anything wrong. Joe Biden fucked it up. I'm a lefty. Fuck Joe Biden.
I was just about to say, is this a right-wing Soyato arc? Like, this was quite interesting. All right, next, I'm going to move it to Layman.
Yeah, so this is going to be unfortunate for me because I don't actually know that much about banking, so I'm probably not going to have much to contribute to the conversation. All I'll say is that when I hear people blame stuff on like just greed for like unique, terrible situations that happen, my mind immediately is like, probably not, because everybody in any business structure is capable of being greedy at any time. There's usually no reason to believe that people become uniquely greedy at some other times and then stop being greedy and more altruistic at other times. Usually it's pretty consistent across the board. So I get a little skeptical when it comes to that. As far as like, banking reform, it's pretty broad. I can't really speak to America's situation with their central bank or anything like that. I support central banking. Central bank independence, I think, is pretty good. Usually correlates with, lower inflation, shit like that. I think lower inflation is good. So, I'm usually not a big fan of like very, very steep interest rate hikes. I think that should be done very carefully. If governments don't seem to be doing anything about inflation that is tangible, that is good, and you got to raise interest rates, I'm totally down with that if you got to do it. But and I'm happy to pay more myself as a homeowner. So, that's all I can really contribute for now. And I'll try to interject when I can, but I don't promise that I will be able to. Sorry.
No, it's okay because I definitely want to try to work some level of like home ownership and basically home equity into this because Canada's having that problem really, really hard. And remind me, what is one of the biggest industries that banking is attached to? Oh, that's right, home ownership.
The housing market, yeah.
So there is plenty of room to bring your ass in here and really get you fired up because I know that's one of your babies. Mm-hmm. Last, but certainly not least, I'm going to bring it to Socrates. Go ahead, sir.
All right, so I also do not know very much about banking, and other people got to say some of the goodies regarding SVB before I did. So I'll bring up the aspects of it that I read about, and people can tell me if I'm describing them entirely incorrectly, which I probably am. One aspect of SVB is that it's a big funder, or it's a big bank for biotechs. And biotech wasn't exactly a bubble, but they were kind of overvalued during the pandemic. Everybody was like, "Oh wow, COVID, Pfizer, Moderna, look all these, this is a cool thing. Everybody knows about biotech now." And so, and that's my field. So I can see, this is something I look at. Everything is like really low right now. All biotech stocks are really low right now compared to what they were like a couple of years ago during the pandemic. So I don't, somebody could step in and explain how this all works better than I can. But I think it was kind of a dual hit of the bonds being worth a lot less, and they had all these investments, I guess, in biotechs, because they're a bank that's funding and putting money into biotechs, and those stocks are also suddenly worth a ton less, like right at this moment. They'll probably go up a little bit over the next year, and it's not like it was a bubble that burst. It was just a little overvalued, but it's a kind of dual hit of the bonds being worth a lot less, and all these biotechs that were reasonable investments just not being worth so much right now. And those companies also, because they're startups, they can't weather that kind of storm of like worrying about losing their money. If this biotech starts selling, they're like, we got to just get all of our shit out right now. They might need that money really quickly. If they were bigger, if they were big pharma, maybe they could just weather it and not have to act as quickly. But because they're startups, they have to go pretty fast. When it comes to banking overall, it seems to me like there's something that we have to grapple with ever since 2008. This has been just like an issue that's been just like so in the open, but so unbelievably unaddressed, as just this like massive tower that sometimes collapses and smashes our cities, but we don't really do anything to like prop it up or have building codes or whatever. It seems like if we have like structural, like economic structure that some banks are holding up, then we can't just treat them like any other banks. They need to be, I don't know, maybe they need to be public, or they can't be allowed to have these structural roles. And then we're like, well, you're just a normal corporation, but if you fail, it fucks us over. So we'll just, maybe you don't know that you're structural, and so you won't do anything bad. There won't be any moral panic. Maybe you don't have any analysts. I don't know. So it seems like we have to address that.
Suspicious call for state capitalism out there.
Just for the banks. Just for the banks. Only the banks and Twitter and Facebook and Amazon. Nothing big. Just those. Okay.
Nationalize all of it.
So there is one or two more points out there that I still want to see or hear. Seattle actually was the closest one, which was a little shocking to me. We'll see if you guys hit it. But now it's time for the open, and if you want to tag me in on that one.
Don't centralize the fucking banks, dude. No, no. Like
I just said specifically the banks that we end up determining retrospectively have a structural role. We can't just, right? Because we end up doing that on the back end. We say, fuck it, man. You can't fail, so here's this money. We do it.
Cypher is the one who actually got closest to the answer on this one.
Glass-Steagall.
He tucked it in the beginning before he went on to the rest of it, and it is, let us put Glass-Steagall back into place where investment banks and corporate banks can no longer be merged and start gambling with their fucking people's money.
Yeah,
because if you're gambling with people whose money who can afford it, who are willing to take that risk for the greater interest rate on those bank holdings, that's fine. That's why we had investment banks back in the day. Now any bank can be an investment bank. I've seen fucking credit unions try and do investment banks.
Jesus.
And fucking bust themselves.
That's crazy.
So,
why wouldn't they? Because they can get more profit
investment
that way.
Money, how would the rich get richer? Oh, it's so bad.
I don't know. The Fed should just come in and just tell them to fuck off. I mean,
look, if we didn't have these problems, we would never get to say the phrase "golden parachute," which is just an amazing phrase. So,
at least in the banking industry. Yeah.
So,
And
So
again,
since
here's
my
one thing
Hold-
I will agree with Socrates on is that the centralizing of a single bank, not all banks, or even these key banks that he listed out, but a central bank that can take those key infrastructure points out of the loop so that these banks are no longer too big to fail, combined with Glass-Steagall, would settle the fucking problem.
Yeah. Postal banking system.
all right.
There you go. Actually, that would work great. Thank you.
That could
Sin-
work as well. I mean, there's no reason why. Go ahead, Tiberius. It's your
Since
show.
Jacanadar, my producer, wants to join the panel, I guess I'll jump in myself. And considering that chat is like, why are we talking about banking reform? One, we try to have some higher level conversations out here. So, you can take it that one or leave it. But anyway, where I'm going to go is that we will probably move on to another topic at a later point. We just haven't got there yet. The one point I do want to bring in that Soyato kind of tacked on, but we didn't get to, is that both American and Canadian banks have been running like they are in recession ever since 2008. We dropped interest rates to the floor. There was very little solvency regarding our banking system, and so you do have a lot of accreditation that's been pumped out by the Fed just to keep everything going. Problem with that.
Line go up. It's all that matters. Line go up.
Yeah. This is far too much supply side economics, and I blame Bush Jr. for bringing that shit back because it wasn't needed at the time. We actually didn't. We had a credit bubble at the time, not a credit crisis. So yeah, absolutely bad fiscal policy, really horrendous credit policy. And you know what? As much as I hate it, Powell is probably doing the right thing right now by pulling interest rates where they should have been for a while. He just did it quick. He did it really quick, and I think that's
way
super
too quick. You have to take into account the velocity of money, and if you slam the fucking brakes, all that goes away, and it seizes up all the amount of spending that anybody can do. What we have, because of the fiscal policy that the federal government took during COVID and continued on past the COVID exit point to a degree up until like, what was it, just like 4 or 5 months ago, that made it to where there was the gas and the brake being pushed at the same time from two different sides. And so it kind of canceled it out a little bit. It's like, yeah, you got a little bit of studying like Soyados there. Now, as far as the interest rate time horizon risk that Soyato elegantly put in his opener on that one, yeah, he's 100% right that the banks didn't really do anything wrong, other than maybe not hedge as much as they needed to on that. Now, the problem with saying that though is the fact that not everybody can hedge, because in order to hedge, you have to buy insurance, and on an insurance market in anything that's financial, it's basically a bet, and so somebody else has to take the other side of the bet. If you try to insure the entire system, then no one's taking the other side of the bet, so there you can't have insurance, and the entire thing collapses on itself. Hell, shout out to AIG, basically, right? So what we need is to just insure all deposits of normal fucking people and tell the investors to go fuck themselves.
Okay.
That's what
I think
need.
Some shots fired, but is that not what FDIC is for? I'm sorry, Flotrace.
What about businesses? Do you hate businesses?
I said investors.
No, I'm talking to Ty.
Business.
Like Ty is like FDIC solves everything. So, but does
No.
that
I'm not saying it solves everything. What I'm saying is that like this protects most consumer accounts, right? Like most consumer accounts do not have over 10 grand in them.
By the way, most business accounts as well, because most businesses, because they understand the rules of FDIC, if they aren't a multi-million-dollar company, set up multiple accounts of $250,000 or less so that everything that they put in the bank is insured. Yes, this is like 70% of small businesses do this if they go over $50,000.
Yeah.
Unless you are a multi-million-dollar startup that's sitting on a ton of fucking venture capital cash, because you have to weather every single financial storm that you have, which is why SVB's collapse had systemic issues with everybody else, because people were just sitting on fat stacks of cash. And I say that a lot in the video that I dropped in the chat, so just FYI.
And the whole reason that we have a middle class in America is because of these multi-million-dollar companies, is because that has created the high education jobs that require millions of dollars in the bank to make a giant payroll. And so we need some national payroll banking system.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I think Trace, get in here.
I think the problem when we talk about using FDIC to secure personal accounts is that the question is whether or not that is going to properly insulate people. If you go back to 2009, one of the reasons why Paulson and Bernanke felt so strongly as they did is because there was a strong belief, and I think they were vindicated, that there's a lot of industries that rely on the ability for people to receive loans from those banks, even if their personal accounts are guaranteed, right? Like the auto industry, most famously, and that's why we had those bailouts, is because in order for people to be able to buy cars, they need to be able to get loans, which requires a functioning financial sector, which means that if that goes kaput, even if your 250K is guaranteed, that means that the factory that you work at is going to collapse, and it's going to have huge effects. I think the fundamental problem that sort of Jack was getting at earlier is that there are critical components of the economy that are opted into banking systems that are based on risk that is intolerable, right? We are using money that we can't afford. We're betting money that we can't afford to lose at the casino, and that's the number one rule that you're not supposed to do. And I think that's the fundamental problem. And as long as that is going to be the case, then there has to be some sort of redress of the problem, whether that's making it so that we go back to the previous system of having different kinds of banks for those kinds of things and taking that money that we absolutely can't afford to lose out of that pool, or we just say, you know what, kick rocks, you guys are going to have to suffer the consequences, and in the future, you're going to have to learn the right way to not invest this. I mean, that's a really tough thing, and probably no president's ever going to do that because they'll weather the storm politically, whether or not it's justified or not.
Yeah, oh yeah, it'll be the end of their presidency, so the only way you can do this is a second-term president. And if we put Glass-Steagall back in place, we'll just talk about that one variable. Glass-Steagall is literally responsible for the greatest economic boom of the middle class in America in history. It created 50 years of economic growth in the middle class that has been unprecedented before or since.
Oh,
And the FDIC was established during that time.
I don't know how much I blame Ed Glass-Steagall for that.
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
think
Cause
it was
and
a
effect.
Oh, I
necessary.
blame Clinton. Hey,
Correlation.
I'm blaming a fucking Democrat for this.
No,
so
no, no,
don't-
no, no,
don't-
no.
I'm not even
I'm
blaming
talking
the
about-
right wing for it.
I'm talking about the prosperity that we see under Glass-Steagall. Like I think it's a good safeguard. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the primary prosperity generator.
Yeah, we had a demographic advantage in the 80s and 90s. We had an enormous demographic advantage of the baby boomers, earning and then paying out their benefits before they sucked those benefits. And the boomers are sucking benefits from the system right now. And thanks to Bush Jr., we did not address the problem of Social Security. And so now we are taking a giant bite out of that turd.
Yeah, that was never going to get solved, reliably.
Yeah, okay.
What was the problem with it?
So the problem is that because the boomers are so large and numerous and yada yada yada, they're making Social Security largely insolvent. And what's worse is that at the same time, remind you, what do you do when you're 63? You're saving for retirement. So you have, your Roth IRA, yada, yada, yada. You've got money in investment banks going out to be invested or some kind of
middle class
or whatever. Yeah. What happens when you're 66 and you take that out of the system? The bank no longer has the capital to play with.
Yeah, you get a reverse mortgage.
You don't take it all out. It goes, whatever.
Yeah, you get a reverse mortgage and you lobby your city council to not build any high density housing.
Correct.
So basically, you fuck the younger generation to save your ass in your retirement. Yeah,
which doesn't make sense.
Reverse mortgage
contrary to their own interest to do that.
No, it's totally like high density housing would totally fuck anyone who has a reverse mortgage.
Mm-hmm. No, it absolutely would. First, that's just since we actually have these fucking goddamn hell.
They shouldn't exist.
Yes, reverse mortgages are literally a evident fucking or a piece of evidence that we are in unstaged capitalism. Because
what's a reverse mortgage?
It is a elderly person going to a bank and saying, "I'm going to take out a mortgage. You will give me basically the value of my home now, and you get my home when I die."
Yeah.
Yep.
It's they're using the equity as a bank account, and over time you just get a monthly check.
Yep.
So I mean,
they're horrible. They're horribly predatory. Their fucking interest rates, as far as like the loss you're taking, is ridiculous. Like, seriously,
that sounds like shit.
Take like 2 hours to look into it after the panel, and you will have nightmares for a week. Seriously,
you're essentially paying 20 to 30% interest rates on that,
based off of what you said.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is somebody who I am a communist, but I'm an incremental communist. I don't want revolution because it's war, that has to come with that bullshit. So it's like, for me, this is one of these things that this is going so far the other direction that even capitalists should be going, maybe this is a bad idea because this is creating a house of cards underneath this.
So, Jack, tell me the difference between a HELOC and a reverse mortgage.
I don't know HELOC and reverse mortgage. You have to
Home
tell me
equity
that.
line of credit. Basically, you convert 100% of your equity into a bank account. Into a bank account. So you could basically spend the value of your home against that HELOC. You could go negative balance theoretically, depending on your bank, because the bank will get to seize the home.
So yeah, okay, there is no difference then. Gotcha.
Maybe the interest rate's better. I don't know.
Okay, that I'd have to look into.
Yeah. And I'm not a real economist. Before. I'm not a real lawyer or an accountant. So maybe you can't go negative on a HELOC, but or negative from your start point. But theoretically,
I've never even heard of that before. Reverse mortgage is the only one of these programs I've heard of like that. And maybe that's just because they're not in the states I've personally lived in. Yeah. That could be part of it.
The whole point of what I'm saying is that I'm shitting on property owners who have created a hellscape for Gen Zers and millennials, and they're like advantaged.
Yeah, my generation.
Yeah, because of the system we have built for them, we are pitting the older generation against the younger.
No, they did it. They did that to themselves.
Yeah, but they didn't know what they were doing, though.
If you just
but they don't know what they don't know what they're doing.
Wait,
they're not intentionally
when you do, it's time to change.
Fracturing.
Well, right, it's time to change, and they're not. Go ahead.
Sorry, everyone's trying to talk at the same time now.
Wait, sorry, Ty. I didn't quite understand your statement that they did this themselves. You're saying like Gen Z.
No. I'm talking like the boomers have made it to where everyone who's younger than them should hate them.
It's sure, yeah, that's true.
And here's the thing that I've got to say regarding my generation. The fact that we don't realize that we should hate the boomers is what scares the shit out of me personally. But
why would we? Look, like you have to look at the people that are making money and understand what their positions are, right? So somebody in my position that just crossed over that great threshold recently, I don't have any problems. I have no problems in my life right now. None. Zero. Why would I hate the boomers? My life is good, right? So anybody that's in the top 30, maybe 40% of income earners.
I'm doing pretty good, and I don't like the boomers.
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Same. But I'm saying like they're not. And most people.
Yeah.
Most people aren't like ingrained into politics like we are. So as long as their life is going pretty good.
Yeah, so most people are very insular and individualistic to the point where they as long as their insular bubble is okay, they don't give a shit how much the world is burning around them. Yay, rugged individualism.
So to put this a different way, we end up hating the boomers, but every time they open their mouths and smugly and ignorantly talk about how you should just be going door to door trying to get hired at a business, or just find a good starter home. It might take some money. You'll have to scrimp and save the $4,000 it takes for a down payment on a
lock in your rate
$200,000 home, which is what a house costs, right? But we should be hitting them.
They don't know. Yeah, they don't know. We should be. Go on.
We should be listening to them and trying to wrap our minds around that this world that they lived in is maybe a possible world that if we actually take action,
absolutely is.
Come backward, lots of people could buy homes where people could get jobs.
Absolutely. So you're never going to go back, because population increase is going to lead to such a skyrocket in demand, which is going to, you're not going to get like the super low demand and affordable shit you had before. But there's a lot of shit that they have done in their generations, policy-wise, directly, that are making everything like way, way worse as far as being able to afford new homes.
Hold up. Unless we reform immigration, we are at a population landslide in the next decade.
Correct. Now, there's one other thing we should do, though, before Tiberius. I just want to make this point.
But we obviously have a higher population now than we did in like the 50s, right?
Sure.
Like that's
the 50s. Yeah. When the boomers were pumping out. Well, come on.
When the silent generation. Yeah.
Well, when the boomers start dying.
Yeah.
We have a population landslide.
We're below replacement, I know. And I'm not reducing everything to just population. I'm just saying that's one factor of many. So the big thing that I was trying to touch on was that there are policies that they have directly created themselves, mostly on the municipal level, the city level, that you can easily just fucking undo with one based YIMBY fucking council, which will probably never happen. That's why you need it to be done at the state level. But yeah,
well, maybe not the state level either if you have a state like
then,
Texas.
Let me split hairs here. The first part here is that like getting to like actual like zoning reform, housing reform. That's a separate conversation.
Yeah, you want to talk about banks? I know. I'm just trying to.
No. So
find
like
places where I can actually say something.
We're moving there anyway because like the banking reform, I think we all touched on, and we weren't going to stay there.
Okay,
I just accepted that as reality. So anyway, here's the issue that I'm at when it comes to like population and how that's structured out. I'm not too worried about the Americans because we have millennials, right? We basically are the boomers' kids, and we match them at least pound for pound, like dude for dude. When it comes to the Zoomers, there's less of them. What's going to be interesting and what's going to scare me, whether it goes this way or not, do the millennials have enough kids along with immigration to kind of fill out the ranks for Alpha Gen? So far, the numbers are actually indicating yes, but it's not going the way that we thought. We actually thought we would jump up to around replacement rate again because the millennials were going to have kids around their 30s. And while the data has pointed that way, the issue is that we're not having enough of them. It's just we're trending for like 1.8, 1.7, and
one
we
and
thought
done.
we'd be somewhere near 2.
Yep.
Yeah,
one or two are done. Yep.
I was going to make a joke.
I don't see
do
that.
millennials' dogs pay into payroll taxes?
Basically, we've got another 5 years that we're expecting this window to be open. If millennials still want to have kids at, when they're 31, 32, totally viable. And quite honestly, this is where I disagree with you. Absolutely. If we're at any point where we can actually afford it, where we actually can get a house, it's going to be later on, like in the next couple of years, because boomers are retiring or they're dying, which is leaving a hole in the housing market. They're leaving holes in the employment market to where we're actually seeing raises. I think this is our last big chance to actually push this back up. Second point.
Yeah.
Canada's fucked because the Americans solved it with immigration. You can't.
What do you mean we solved? What do you mean you solved it with immigration? What does that mean?
So we actually we brought it. Yeah. So I'll get there in a second. Americans have been able to fill the hole that we had with our less than replacement with immigration because we have basically a pipeline.
Oh, we're trying to do that now.
Yes, you are. The problem is that you've got a bunch of 30-year-olds you need to replace.
True.
Yeah. Like millennials are not as big in Canada as they are in the United States.
And we also and that's true. Like just like we incentivize childcare more than the US does, like on like a government level, and our replacement rate is still lower than the US. So that's a big issue. I'm pretty doomer when it comes to that stuff because I genuinely don't think that you could reverse those trends without doing some like really authoritarian shit, like banning fucking contraception or some shit.
I think you're correct. I actually agree with Layman on this one. And the reason I agree with him on this one is because think about it. What is the best thing for your kid that isn't going to die? Is to have less of them and pump as much money into them as possible so that they can be the best that they can be. There's no incentive for us to have more kids. Kids are not dying in the rows that they once did back in like the 20s or whatever, where you had to have like 6 kids in order for 2 to survive.
Come on, who's the real lefty? Open borders. The average age of Africans is like 18 or 19. The average age of Africans is 18. Immigrate, come on.
No, I'm not against immigration or anything. It's just that's not enough. Like you can't just bring in a bunch of immigrants who are already more likely to have kids. I agree, but the problem is once they integrate themselves into Western culture, which has all of these technological advances, all of this individual liberty and shit, and liberalism and shit, and material access and shit, then they're just going to be like everybody else. They're gonna lose their faith, and then they're not going to give a shit. They're not going to have kids.
It's capitalism. It's capitalism.
Capitalism of the gaps, dude. If something's bad and I don't have a rational explanation for it, we're just going to say the capitalism. But
after they integrate,
thing that doesn't actually mean anything, right?
We have all this automation. We don't have a labor demand. We have so much. We have like robot consoles at McDonald's, so you just boop into a screen instead of talking to a human being. And so we might think that
that's why no one's having kids. What?
No, that's a natural response. Is that because labor prices are too high? We've invested in technology, and so if we think we need labor, we can try to introduce more labor, but then the demand for labor is not going to materialize.
Okay, so I don't see how that's capitalism.
I don't
I
think
think that's
that's-
just a technology and
Yeah, that's just
this is just
There was a
technocratic.
cycle there.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. What capitalism means doesn't matter because if we go down this, I'm not going down this rabbit hole. I want to pivot us off of it because I don't
Yeah,
want
that's
to.
fair.
I don't want to talk
We're
about this
teetering on the brink.
amorphous boogeyman called capitalism. Which, if I talk about it with you and if I entertain this conversation, the definition of capitalism is going to change every single time. Like if Cypher fucking says, "Well, I don't think it's capitalism. I think it's technology," then the definition will change to something else. And
Okay.
then if we attack that definition or defend that definition, then it's going to change to something
We're
else.
already-
If it's
we're
like, well, no,
entering-
here's this other variable.
We're
we didn't
already
use
entered
before.
in that territory,
We
Layman.
have
I'm
entered
sorry.
Saying
I'm
its
sorry.
name. I've invoked Voldemort.
We have
Okay,
passed the
so-
event horizon, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait. So are we gonna get off of the banking topic entirely now? Do
Yes.
we need to tell?
I'll put it
Do we
this
need
way.
to talk about anything else?
As
Like-
as a moderator note, if anyone has some further things that they want to talk banking reform on, feel free to add into that. We can, scoop that up before we move on.
Eliminate
so-
profits. Eliminate banking profits for consumer and business cash deposits.
Fucking
Why would
red.
anyone start a
Jesus
bank if they're
Christ.
not going to make money off of it?
Would they
They
just
would start an investment bank,
counts?
and they would
Okay,
make money
you,
off of
you can
loans.
let them try. You can let them try to compete without investing with Glass-Steagall returning, but no one is going to serve the market, and so that's why it
Yeah.
has to be nationalized.
I don't think.
I
think that-
disagree. I think
When has that ever worked?
there are
You
there are
mean
undoubtedly.
In
Sorry, go
Europe?
ahead.
When has like nationalizing banks worked? Like
You,
made
you
things
mean
better?
you mean when we had a postal banking system, or in
No,
Europe?
I'm
or
just asking for an example of like,
Oh.
well, like if you nationalize like all the banks and shit, like how that works. I'm just asking a question.
who has national assets and has a national benefit from.
That's a
those
social
that's
wealth
just a
fund.
solid wealth fund.
Oh,
That's a social wealth fund. That's not
oh,
nationalized bank. That's social wealth fund. It's an entirely
oh,
different thing.
Okay, different. It's a national.
No, it is
investment
different.
bank.
Yeah,
You're right.
no,
it is different. It's a
Alberta
national
has a
investment
sovereign
bank.
wealth fund, but their banks are still private.
All right.
Like it's not the same
no,
thing.
Hold on a second. I need to. I want.
all right.
so-
Cypher
Fucking
and then-
socialist. Like
Cypher
everything
and
is
then
the same fucking
Flowtrace.
thing. Like it's no nuance. Everything is socialism or everything is capitalism. And there's no nuance. Like
so socialism where risk is untenable. Capitalism where risk is okay.
Is this really where
Wow.
we're at?
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah,
I
this is
think
where
it's
we're at.
fair.
I want to move
Oh
on.
my-
Yeah, I'm
okay,
getting
go,
upset about
go.
this.
I do need to bring up. So I
I
want to
need to
bring up
smoke
the
more.
crypto thing on this because I think Soyadal didn't give me my due credit on this one. So there is crypto heads out there talking mad smack about how the Federal Reserve took over Silvergate Capital, and because they serviced a wide variety of crypto tech, and by that we mean just fintech, financial technology, and it is a direct competition with the Federal Reserve. At least that is in their mind. I don't agree with this thing. I think it's bullshit. However, it does reveal some possible contagion within the system, because if you have a bunch of people investing in nothing and all those people are trying to get rich off of that nothing, and it's being used for scams and money laundering and all this other stuff, and that every single bank or a lot of banks are getting involved in that, then you could possibly have contagion. Now, whether or not that is actually happening, we won't know for at least a couple of months. Be completely honest, we've had FTX collapse, we've had Luna collapse, we've had all these different crypto investment firms collapse over the last 3 or 4 months, but we haven't seen the biggest ones, or we saw the biggest ones collapse, but not like the system itself on their collapse. So if there is contagion within the crypto market to the wider economic market, we'll see that in the next few months, I believe.
All right.
Maybe.
Flowtrace, you're up.
I don't have a dog in the race. I have like a tiny bit of fund in crypto. I wish that crypto would be better, but you're right. It's all a scam right now.
Flowtrace, activate attack mode. You have my
I
permission.
think that there is a really awesome conversation happening here that is missing some very tenable solutions here. I don't think we need to nationalize the banks, but it's undoubtable that this level of risk in things this critical is not tenable moving forward. We need to find some way out of this pathway because this just isn't acceptable. Personally, I am a much bigger fan of criminal penalties. I think if you actually look at the world of people who are, when you look at the total pool of people that are at the highest levels of banking, it's actually quite a small pool. This is part of the reason why lobbyism is a problem, is because on the one hand, if you're actually trying to look for competent people that do have experience in the industry, that's actually a pretty small number, which means that I think levying criminal punishments if you're engaged in unacceptable levels of risk, if you aren't following certain financial regulations like know your customer, like it kind of seems like SVB maybe wasn't doing as we're more and more starting to come out. These are the kind of things where you need to see the inside of a jail cell for a significant period of time. There needs to be more of a consequence to, if we're saying that the consequence to losing these bets can't be financial, well, there still needs to be a consequence, perhaps then legal, I think is a really positive solution. And I don't really think that this is that crazy of an idea either. We already have, for example, if you are a utility company that is somewhat private, you have greater restrictions and obligations as to what you can and can't do. And if you break those, you are going to get the slammer. So I don't really think there's that crazy to say that, the most important banks in America are not always meeting their fiduciary responsibilities, not just to their holders, but to the, I guess, economic health of the country as a whole. And it doesn't seem that crazy to sort of leverage. I mean, I think that a lot of people would be on board with maybe seeing more than one person from 2009 see the inside of a jail cell. And I don't think we have to go down some crazy socialist route to get there.
Okay.
I think FlowTrace, do you want me to go? Or do you want to go first? I don't know what your point you're going to make.
Go.
All right. So FlowTrace, I agree with you, and I think SVB is emblematic of this problem because what is it, like a day or two before, every single top CEO, the CTO, the CFO, the CEO, and like two other people down that chain sold roughly about $2 billion of collective assets onto the market before they were
right
Right
before
they also
they
all got
liquidated.
bonuses.
Every single, and they got bonuses. Yeah. So every single penny that they reap from that system needs to be clawed back and just put into the Federal Reserve. Let's get rid of that inflation that would cause right there. Just make that money disappear and possibly serve jail time for financial fraud. So
but how much is that? What is that? 50%, 10%, 1%? I mean, who's the real criminal here? If SVB execs are going to jail, why not Jerome Powell? Why not the person who increased... No, come on. We're going to have fun with this. Why not the person who increased the risk profile of SVB in the first place?
Yeah.
So the risk... No. The risk profile... I'm sorry. I'm just bullying a little bit here. The risk profile needed to be higher. Our interest rates were in the tank in a level that actually propagated just bad fucking behavior. Like, when you have interest rates at 1 or 2%, you can get away with some really sleazy shit. I'm gonna be straight up honest.
Come on.
It's free money.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's not necessarily free money, but it's cheap money. And for lack of a better term, I don't think Facebook, Twitter, and most of the social media revolution would have happened without this money, because it's a lot of very high risk, not a amount of reward kind of money. And you'll notice that every single one of them in this environment is doing a lot worse. They can't handle the volatility. And what we're going to see is that a lot of tech bros are going to get their ass kicked, and some of that's needed, but they will adapt and change. What I do think is going to very much happen is how much people have taken some of this cheap money and invested in shit like crypto, because I've said this many, many times, and I don't know how many people are going to agree with me or disagree here. The intrinsic value of crypto is 0.
True.
And it's going to go back to
It is
zero.
not even worth 0. It is literally a negative value because it is creating an artificial fucking security in the fucking market in people's minds. It is giving them this weird, I have crypto, I'll be okay.
I would say it's even worse than that because of the environmental implications.
I was about to go there, but yeah, Cypher is correct. If we actually see major movement on crypto, to where, I'm sorry, not crypto, just on green policy, to where we actually tax carbon in a meaningful way, crypto actually becomes negative in value.
Cap and trade, baby.
Not all crypto is proof of work, which is what Bitcoin is. So there is crypto out there that is proof of stake, which is it has a very low energy threshold, and all that is doing is it's utilizing people's basically bank accounts to validate the chain, and it's a risk pool.
And so hard drive space.
So that doesn't, it's minimal. It's not much worse than
it's actually
just
your average bank. then you're
It's
on
actually
board.
less than the banking system that we currently have.
Right.
That's why.
But if Ethereum proof of stake takes off, then like all of a sudden silicon for hard drives and solid state storage goes through the roof, and then there's a massive crash in global electronics manufacturing because all of it will be sucked up worse than GPUs were sucked up from Bitcoin. So so there are risks in all of this.
Yeah, I was
But
about to
the
say,
thing
they
is-
only make up about 20% of the crypto market, right?
I'll take I will take cheap
until we carbon tax.
GPUs over storage or expensive storage. I absolutely will.
Yeah, so most of the crypto market is actually just tokens, which is something attached to one of the existing chains already. So it uses whatever the chain is to send the info out, and that info is just the token. So that's why it's a lot of it's scams. It's nothing built on top of nothing but on top of nothing. Which is why I separate blockchain technology from crypto in general. When I'm talking about crypto, I'm talking about the financialization of the blockchain, not the actual things that we can do with blockchain, such as cryptographic protections against identity theft, or maybe even online voting, or whatever. IP protection, all this kind of stuff. As far, NFTs, as shitty as those are from an energy standpoint, they actually allow digital art to be monetized. And that's cool. So these are that's why I'm not against blockchain itself per se, but that's why
I'm more against NFTs than blockchain itself. But I get what you're going with.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Yeah.
But no, the thing is NFTs, if they are used correctly, because NFTs don't necessarily have to be art; they are extremely cheap to make.
Yeah.
One of the things that I had talked about with a programmer friend of mine is blockchaining original code to basically do the equivalent of a poor man's patent on a unique line of code you created, so that you can date stamp, hey, no, I was the first one that created this, fuck off.
But right now that's not legally protected. You can't legally protect
not here.
code.
Yes, correct.
Not here. Not here.
They fucked up.
But it just got protected.
God bless that library filing system.
Wait.
where
Switzerland
NFTs, though?
codified the blockchain. Let me look at this.
Wait, what?
No, they didn't codify the blockchain. They codified that you could protect using NFTs. You could protect IP.
Is encoding on Discord crash.
That's all. I think. Yeah, sorry. Just to hop off of, I think what we're talking about here. I think the central problem with crypto is the degree that the speculation is allowed to grow and become entangled with the rest of our markets. If you want to bet it all on black, that's one thing, but it's the entanglement, and there has to be better firewalls here. And if the markets aren't solving for those firewalls, and I think in fact it's sort of a race to the bottom where you want to go with the bank that has the best terms, and the banks that give the best terms are the ones that successfully win bets, then we need some sort of better firewalling of this kind of stuff. What that takes the form of, I think there's a lot of back and forth, but I think we're all pretty close in agreement that it needs to be something in that circle. There needs to be better firewalls for this kind of stuff, because the entanglement is just unacceptable, right? It's like, imagine if you went to your city council meeting we're gonna have to shut down the police. Why? Well, we put all of the police's budget in Bitcoin. Bro, that's okay. Time.
Someone did that.
I think we just turned the right wingers.
I'm sorry. I know your intentions are in the right place, but this just isn't acceptable.
That's like the
It's
ANCAP
outdoor.
version of defund the police, right?
El Salvador did this, and they crashed their economy, but now it's back up, and people are like, "See, bet long on Bitcoin." I'm just like, "Shut the fuck up!"
Hold on.
All right,
Probably should.
I need to call a mulligan on this one. All right,
yum sauce on.
Jack, mute yourself, damn it.
Open mic.
All right, so I can do that as a mute, but I wanted to yell at him. So anyway, we're at this point. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Can I make a bid for the next topic?
I was wanting to.
That's what you're
I'm considering housing reform, but go ahead. What do you got?
If you want to make a bid, you have to put it all in.
So I know you weren't hot on this. You were saying it was talked about in a lot of other panels. Maybe there won't be a lot of contention. I'm not sure, but I feel like I want to throw another the pot at least. We've been talking a lot about it in the Discord. The hundreds of anti-trans bills that have been put out over the past year. There's 381 tracked now by the ACLU over the past week. I think Arkansas, Kentucky just passed one, and it was vetoed by the governor. They might have the majority to get over the veto. I'm not sure. And there's one in Idaho, especially, that is really fucking insane, which has this clause that for every instance of a student catching and then narking on a student of the opposite gender going into a bathroom in their school, they can sue their school for $5,000 per instance.
All right, so
this shit is fucking wild.
Let me just fast track this one because I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. Does anyone want to defend this shit? Is there anyone on this panel who is going to be like, yeah, there's merit to this? Like, we absolutely, yeah.
Sounds stupid.
Yeah, that's the problem with this topic. I would have to give you different panelists to go up against.
You need to get fucking Andrew Wilson on here, okay?
Here to
I mean, Layman, to give you some, do you know all those things surrounding this? Because most of these are impacting kids to one degree or another. Does that matter to you? No. I just didn't know if you. Okay,
I'm not super interested in it to be
fair enough.
To be honest. Like yeah,
my problem is that at minimum it's either. Give me just a second.
I haven't read any of these bills. Like I don't know anything about them. So
at minimum, this is an echo chamber, and at like the hardest this gets is that like you just have a couple of people being like, "Hey, I'm trans skeptical, but I'm not this is way too far," kind of shit. Like there's no one here that's like dramatically anti-trans, or even.
Let me take the far left position. Kids are fucking shitty to each other, and the only problem with trans people in bathrooms is that they will actually report on the shit that kids have been doing to each other in bathrooms forever. That's the problem.
Okay.
Not wrong.
Okay. My take on this situation is I hope we all can agree on this. Do not involve anyone under 18. Do not involve me in what happens behind doors. Do not force me to do anything. And do not involve the children.
You can't do that though. That's
in what? That was a little vague. Involve them in what?
Wait. So you can't tell children about people dressing differently?
No, I don't understand what he means. I need him to elaborate.
No, you shouldn't.
Okay, he's elaborating more.
They shouldn't be exploring these fucking things. It's stupid.
I got a book called Sparkle Boy that is about cross-dressing for kindergarten to 3rd grade. Am I a criminal for showing that book to my daughter?
Okay, hold on. It's not criminal. I don't agree with it.
Why is it a law?
He said he doesn't agree with it personally.
I just say I don't agree with it.
So this is why I asked.
He personally doesn't agree with it. He doesn't think it should be illegal. We don't have to manufacture an argument.
Great.
Like he just personally doesn't like it. That's all he's saying.
Small government Republicans, let's go.
Oh my god!
So no,
all right.
We gotta move on from this.
We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. But I just want to make clear is that in some of these instances, the Republican state legislatures are trying to make it illegal for parents to decide what their kids are doing. That's the problem.
To the point,
I haven't read any.
Parents have a right. To a point, the parents have a.
Go ahead.
You can go back. To a point, the parents do have a right to what their child does. Yeah. If they're under 18.
Sure.
Awesome. Stop putting features of somebody just so we're aware of like what the topic is, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think anybody, Socrates, no offense, I don't think anybody really wants to talk about this today.
We were, to my understanding, we weren't talking about it. Yeah. We specifically decided we weren't going to.
Because the issue is here, there's no one who's going to push back like super hard on you. Like the only way I can move this into a conversation I think that would be worthwhile is going, hey, you know what? How much should a parent be invested in their child's development and future? I think
just in general. Yeah,
I think because
not related to transgender shit specifically. Yeah.
Right, because just to maximize this conversation, I wish I had some like harder right wingers on here just to kind of like ground that out, because that's one of the hugest political issues is how much a parent's involved, and it flip flops because you see left wingers being like, leave the parents alone in Mississippi, but then you see right wingers be like, leave the parents alone in New York. It's weird
or
because
Florida.
Yeah, it's weird because
it's weird. Yes, and let me say it's because one group is trying to allow their children to learn things, and the other is trying to dismantle the public education system.
You mean disallow?
Thank you.
No. Actually, No. I can point this out specifically. We actually are talking about the Republican trying to dismantle the American education system since the 1980s.
Yes.
But culminating in two specific bills: the No Child. No, I'm going to tell you. The specifically the No Child Left Behind Act and the Every Student Succeeds Act. These are two pieces of legislation that basically pushed it to where teachers are forced to teach to the test because tests are very tied to the funding of the school. So they aren't actually teaching like older people like myself and you probably were educated in school. They are literally teaching you how to pass a multiple choice standardized test.
And you saw this change. You saw this change early in 1999 to 2002. When state legislature started doing it before No Child Left Behind was actually enacted on a federal level. But that's not the only thing. Well, that's not the only thing though. There's like
I just don't know anything about this. Like
charter schools.
That's fair.
Oh, but you went through the schooling.
He's Canadian. It's not. It's
I have no reason to learn about this.
Oh, how is it being a civilized nation, Layman? I mean, come on.
We're not that. We're uncivilized in many ways that the U.S. isn't. In my
Have you
opinion.
seen
which we could talk
Parliament?
about. Yes.
Ottawa's Parliament? Come on, they are not a civilized nation.
Okay, Parliament's based. Fuck you. Parliamentary democracy is based. Term limits are cringe.
The first time I ever got Ty to screech at me, I was suggesting that we enact parliamentary procedures here in America. He actually, visibly got red and yelled at me.
To be fair, if I lived in the U.S., I would not be advocating for that because that's impossible to do in the U.S. That's just you would never be able to do that in the U.S. So
just make no.
I would
just
never
make
do that
STV and we're like halfway to Parliament.
Yes, single transferable vote. Fuck yes.
Oh god. I'm dying on the inside.
I thought we were going to talk about the TikTok ban. That was
we need to talk about that.
Okay, fine. We can do that one.
Oh yes,
we can do.
I'm actually yes. I watched the whole 5 hours. I wasted 5 hours of my life.
Wow! I only saw TikTok clips on TikTok of the hearing. Yeah. That's all I've seen.
All right,
but I am invested in the topic.
We can do that. I did think the housing conversation was real, but we can do the.
I will love to talk about that too. Any day, any week. Too.
I feel like it's a fucking
panel can decide.
So here's the problem. Does anyone just not agree with me that this is more of a meme topic than it is reality? Because while we're having congressional hearings on it,
not necessarily.
The issue that I have with this is that the people who are talking about it have no idea how the internet works.
Listen.
It doesn't matter.
Listen. It can tie. No, but it ties into a broader topic that is really important, which is Western independence from the evil hell that is China. So it does tie into that. Yeah, that's what all the opposition to TikTok is downstream from China hawk, right?
Yes,
most of it is.
And I'm a China hawk, so
hold on.
We can talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah. So
if you don't want to, it's your panel. Talk about
China bad. I agree. Go ahead, Cypher.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was trying to give Mind of Oz because I couldn't hear what he was saying.
Mind of Z.
When he was trying to talk.
I did the same thing. Mind of Z.
Mind of Z. Oh, my bad.
I'm making Z. Mind to Oz.
Mind of Z.
Fucking annoying.
All right. I'm gonna fix this. Okay. I'm gonna fix all of this up.
But regardless, Layman is 100% correct. This is all downstream from neocon, basically looking for a new enemy to fight with China, and that's been going on since since basically 9/11 and the conclusion, at least the conclusion of the Iraq War. In the United States, it's also due to China basically flexing its muscles. So
I would push back a little bit. I would say the reason for the right pushing back against China is mostly because we tried to do the sort of like liberalization of trade and have a peaceful relationship with China route, and that just hasn't worked. It's just not working, and we've played out the experiment, which has only been played out fairly recently in like the 2000s or so. And so now we're realizing, okay, we have to do something else about this like huge fucking gaping elephant on the globe problem. So
I want to throw a flag. on the
so we
plate.
got to get rid of
Wait.
Republican Party. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Jesus
Making
Christ.
a
I want to
joke.
throw a flag on the plate.
fucking-
Here's the problem.
You said giant elephant on the globe. It was a good joke.
Stop fucking baiting, you losers. Jesus Christ. All right. Anyway, I want to hit this real quick for layman. And that is, there's
Sure.
a part where I get where you're at, but I actually want to separate symptom and cause here.
Sure.
I think that liberalization and like of trade and economics does tend to produce more liberal outcomes, even for the people that you're working with. But all of the buildup that was happening because we actually had a labor force in China that could demand things of their leaders died when the CCP got their hands on big data. Because all of a sudden now big data could just make it to where they can pay anyone who has this idea of democracy in their head a visit. So I don't think free trade was a mistake for trying to industrialize China and liberalize China. The problem is we had a new tech fuck it up.
Oh, and I totally understand like the reasons why we did it back in like the 70s, 80s, 90s, a little bit in the 2000s too. I understand that was a good reason to do it because liberalization of trade has worked in influencing certain places to become more westernized compared to where they were previously. Like Israel is a good example of that, I think. It has worked in some ways. I just don't think it's worked with China specifically. I think there are nations that can work with. China's just not one of them. That's my opinion.
It could have worked with China if it was probably closer in geography to other liberal nations.
Yeah, maybe. It's just not. So yeah.
I'm saying I don't think it's something specific.
And it does have and it's worked with neighbors, right? South Korea is far more Western than.
Well, South Korea was also. Yeah, but South Korea was also dominated by the U.S. Western interest during the Soviet, and then also had a dictatorship for 30 years that tried to put liberalization policies. And,
why is it that most of the fascists end up going to become liberals? It's weird. Like, anyone notice this?
People think there's like
liberal.
It's the fascist to liberal pipeline. Okay, that's the base pipeline. That's a pipeline I like to hear. Okay,
that was not the reason that happened in South Korea. Though is multifaceted. It happened because of a couple of. No, I'm just talking to Tiberius's point here, like because I don't agree with it because with South Korea specifically because South Korea had a couple of major incidences of the government cracking down too hard and causing mass protest movements. Well, so South Korea is in this weird situation.
Wait. So, sometimes it happens one way or another, but like this is the thing I want to go, and then I'll flow trace get in after me. South Korea, Portugal, Spain, Taiwan. Chile, there's about 30 nations on this list that, you roll it back to the 60s and 70s, they're pretty fascistic. And if we actually just let them kind of hang out for a bit, they tend to liberalize after a bit.
Yeah, well, Poland, some of those on the list are also refascising. So,
especially
a global phenomenon, though.
So what you're telling me is that the true march of history is the internal battle between liberalism and fascism. Is that what you're getting at?
I agree.
No, at least authoritarianism to a degree, and then some sort of lefty liberal / anarchist framework.
Okay, I'll fire shots off. Why is it that leftism just fucking dies horribly?
No, I said anarchism. So anarchism. You don't because if you look at like the Soviet Union and the DPRK and the CCP, these aren't like leftist regimes, in like a large sense because they're not democratically ran. They don't have workplace democracy to any degree.
Come on.
Was that
fucking cope?
No, I mean this isn't cope. This isn't cope. If you have an authoritarian regime, you can have economic.
It is by definition not left wing if it's authoritarian.
Was that?
It's by definition not left wing if it's authoritarian.
Communism is the real Nazi ideology.
Nobody said that.
It's national socialism.
I'm talking to Cypher.
Yes,
to me, there's 8 fucking people on this panel.
To layman, to me, if it is authoritarian and there isn't a form of left workplace democracy at some level, you cannot call it socialist, and it is not left.
I never called it socialist.
No, I'm saying both. You can't call it socialist, and you can't call it left wing. I'm dividing that to
was Stalin
make that
a socialist?
I don't think Stalin. I think Stalin was an authoritarian, and by definition, authoritarianism cannot be left wing.
Let's not do this.
That's
To me,
Stalin was absolutely
I understand that I am.
Let's agree to disagree.
I understand. I want to make it clear.
This
I want to make it clear.
Scotsman shit, dude. Like Stalin absolutely was socialist.
I want to make it clear that
I don't
I
think he's a
realize
socialist.
that
I
in
think he's a
all of life and everywhere in the fucking world, for the most part, I am the odd man out on this. I realize.
No, you're not.
So
Because
that's why I'm not
it is a lot of McCarthyism to think that Stalin's fucking policies were goddamn socialist in nature. They were.
I've never said the policies are socialist. I said he's a socialist.
No, he really wasn't. He claimed the title of socialism just because it fucking gave him power, and that's really what it came down to. He was a
Lenin
strong
socialist.
Lenin more than Stalin, yes.
Was he a
but
socialist?
yes. I would say yes, because Lenin actually did start to reshape certain parts of socialism, but he eventually went off the deep end near the end of his tenure. Stalin, not at all. No, Stalin was always a fucking douche.
I'm mostly saying this in response to Cypher. Lenin was an authoritarian guy, and he's
Lenin was an authoritarian guy, which means to me
socialist.
does not make him left wing. He can be socialist, but the left wing has to have some sort of. I don't believe in this.
He's a right-wing
Vanguard
socialist.
The whole Vanguard policy shit is to me is
he's
just
a right-wing
cringe.
socialist.
No,
They're hard to come by.
Wait a minute. No, there is the correct term. He would be a vanguardist, is the correct term.
Or whatever.
I don't like the Vanguard.
This is
thing.
nerd shit.
It's just
this
is why I don't want to debate it because
this
I
agree.
This isn't a serious argument.
If you want to come and debate the difference on communism and socialism, come over and join us on hazard analysis.
He doesn't. He's just trying to dunk on me. I want to know what Flow Trace was trying to say so I can hear him.
Oh, y'all, shut the fuck up for a second, okay? We're like 2 steps away from being a Prime Kai panel. Like, let's roll it back a minute. All right? So, let's get back to, what was it? We were either talking about TikTok being banned, which I feel like is more of a meme, or we can do housing. So, I see a lot of people shaking.
I got one final. Okay, go ahead, Flo.
All right.
No, wait, I'm gonna TikTok.
I'm going to moderate for a bit just so I can make sure everyone can chat because I think everyone does. So I'm just going to roll through like we're just starting topic 2 and move on from there. All right, Z, I'm going to let you go first. What's your thoughts on the TikTok ban, sir?
I honestly think it should be because there's a lot of just people trying to talk about weird shit 24/7. There is one thing that I do want to bring if we do get to that era, but I think it's for a different topic another day. But other than that, the trial pretty much was just, I'm gonna ask you a question, and we're just gonna pivot. That's all it was. Like, or the simple question, I don't know. Well, clearly you do know, so start answering, buddy.
All right, next I'm going to move it to Cypher.
So, unlike the mind of Z, I did not watch all 5 hours of that panel. I did cover the first 5 minutes of it, the opening intro on my newscast this past Thursday. On that, there was some information that I didn't know. So, just to kind of say where my position is, I am social media skeptic by and large, and I think a lot of the things that right-wingers are talking about and other Chinese skeptics, at least with regard specifically to TikTok, can be applied to social media writ large, and I'd rather see that be the focus of this rather than trying to dunk on China and prevent its rise in multiple areas. And I just completely utterly reject the notion that TikTok is being used as a weapon specifically by the Chinese government trying to manipulate our kids to turn them trans or whatever. That right-wing narrative that's going on out there can be completely blown the fuck out. Fuck y'all. Stop. Leave your conspiracy brains at home. I don't care. Like, stop talking this nonsense, please.
What accounts can I follow to get hip?
Right.
Like,
Jesus.
Like, show me.
So, Addo, you're up next anyway.
All right. So I think there's 2 things like sort of hidden, 2 sleeper items sort of hidden in this. One is that we do have a trade deficit developing between China that is a backlash to our physical trade deficit, and that's our trade deficit of intellectual property. And so China has, of course, been giving us a huge amounts of technology and building up and educating their people. And then all of a sudden, like somewhere in 2018, they started developing their media properties. They started buying up like video game companies starting way back in 2010. They acquired 51% of Riot Games in 2011. They acquired 51% of Fortnite, basically. So yeah, China and the financial institution of China is sucking up our, well, they're drinking our milkshake here in America. And so where do the Republicans go? Oh, TikTok is the bad one. And Socrates, your text is backwards on my screen. So the problem is that we're not ready for this confrontation because China is, again, they got the Belt and Road, they got the global multipolar world in their mind, and they're sort of playing with Russia still, and we're not ready for it. So the best thing that Republicans have is to call out the latest ascendant corporation that isn't yet in the control of the U.S. oligarchs, and they're going to play games with it. And so it's a snow job in one part because of that. And the second factor is that, well, this is the big tech. Once they shut down and control TikTok and TikTok's content, they're going to be able to shut down and control YouTube and Facebook's content to a greater degree. They're going to be able to tell you what you can talk about. If you think the trans in schools thing is bad, wait until they restrict how much you can talk about LGBTQ plus stuff on social media. So yeah, this is like two sleeper
which is already happening.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's going to be a thing, if the next election doesn't swing massively progressive, we're going to see that. Even if it swings massively progressive, we're still going to have the first thing, which is the oligarchical fight between China and the U.S.
Yeah. All right. Flowtrace was up next. Go ahead, sir.
To answer your earlier question, Tiberius, about why all these nations are going from authoritarianism or fascism to liberalism, it's called the end of history, and it's the best thing ever. We're still living in the midst of it. The reality is that liberalization of China hasn't yet taken its full course. We're still living in the midst of it, but it undoubtedly is having an effect. If you look at the ways in which China has actually legislated their own areas when it comes to the banning of effeminate men, when it comes to the way that they ban certain glamorous lifestyles on TikTok. Let me tell you, as someone who has watched many a mukbang TikTok at 3 a.m., that entire region was devastated when Comrade G took all of that stuff down. There's undoubtedly a liberalization effect taking place on China. It's just easy to forget that we're still in the middle of this process. People thought the Soviet Union would be around forever, and then it came crashing down. And it's also important to recognize that we were making significant progress with China right up until Xi Jinping. One of the reasons why Xi Jinping is such a dangerous leader is because he's really a return to more of the Maoist control of China. Before that, before 2011, especially 2013 when he cracked down, we were seeing a much more liberal and open China. Admittedly, there's a lot of ways to go, right? Nowhere near what we would like the endpoint to be, in the same way that liberalization of, for example, Eastern European countries still hasn't reached its endpoint, but we were seeing that progress. I think it's really important to frame the sudden shift in China as just that, a sudden departure from a previous trend that was liberalization. And I think ultimately TikTok is a part of that. When you open up our institutions to China, they're going to benefit from, yes, but that's also a crutch. As we've seen with Russia, opting into our systems when we can take them away isn't universally good. And I'd much rather have them integrated into that global system where we're top dog, where we're the biggest players, than let them develop something truly separate, truly parallel. That's going to give them some benefits, yes, but it's also going to get them closer to where we want them. And when shit does hit the fan, they can crash our economy, but we can crash theirs.
Oof. A lot. That is a lot. But I do think it actually answers the question to a significant degree. Moving on to Layman. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, you were actually supposed to be last. It was Socrates that was next. I apologize. Can't have Socrates wrapping it up twice. That would just be rude.
All right. Well, thank you, Ty, for letting me have a chance to have something to say on this topic as an intro. So first of all, yeah, ban TikTok, of course. It's very cringe, nothing of value. But seriously, any of the arguments around oh, are they spying on us? Is this Chinese hegemony? Whatever. Ignore the moral grandstanding, whatever, our government talking to us as citizens, they're doing this for us. This is just a naked power grab. Does anyone remember, so Layman, maybe you'll remember this, Huawei, when the Huawei CFO was trying to be extradited out of Canada. She was detained. I think she was the daughter of the CEO or president, because the U.S. was claiming that she was violating trade sanctions against Iran. Maybe they were selling smartphones to Iran, and they were like, well, we're going to fucking arrest you for that shit. America doesn't like it when China has technology because it threatens our hegemony. So it's a raw, naked power play. Does anybody here raise your hand if you're afraid of a foreign government spying just on you? China can't jail me. Really? Okay.
Yeah, but I'm a
It
little
has
bit of
nothing
a
to do with
case.
China jailing people.
Yeah.
Can we let people?
And I'm going to respond on my.
Can we let people finish their intros? Like,
Yeah.
this is a level of
Oh my
rude
God.
that I expect better from you all. Like, for
Sorry,
real.
he seemed like he was asking us questions. So.
Just your hand. Just your hand.
He's
Keep
the
your hand
professor.
up.
That's his job. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Keep your hand up if you're more afraid of China spying on you than your own government, than like the NSA spying on you. Well, okay, I guess. Well, you should be afraid maybe of the NSA or CIA, whatever. Layman. But to me, this is fucking wild. The idea that like I'm gonna lose social credit in China or some shit when my country can detain me without trial forever for talking about shit, for having material support for Al Qaeda or associated forces. There's provisions in American law to basically arrest dissidents, and they spy on us all the time. So this idea that like our government is protecting us by getting rid of an app that might be spying on us for a foreign government, I don't care. I don't care in the scale of things that actually affect me. And I'm happy to argue with anybody about that.
Oh,
Yeah, I have the feeling you're going to get some.
Shut up! Layman, go.
Okay, so as far as the whole like banning TikTok thing, I don't actually, and I'm a China hawk, right? So it's probably going to sound surprising. I don't really care that much about that, especially because like I don't really see. I just see it as kind of a. I think it's a focus that the China hawks are just kind of focusing on because they're just boomers and they don't understand how technology works. Because I don't really see like a tangible connection, especially after watching at least what little I've seen from the hearing. I don't really see a tangible connection between TikTok and then their parent company ByteDance and then the like one corporate board member of ByteDance or whatever who's like a CCP. Like who like reports to the CCP or some shit like that. Like these are like very different entities that don't really align that much. And the CEO of TikTok has said that, you know, in lieu of all this talk happening, he is going to try to make moves to like make data more secure in the US. So I don't want to ban it if he's doing that voluntarily. Like, so we'll just see how that plays out. But I mean, overall, like as far as like being concerned about China and security and stuff like that, of course I would be concerned about my national security. Of course I would. The reason why I'm more concerned about China is because China is a Western enemy who doesn't share the same values that are instantiated in the institutions of my country, which I love so dearly, and that allot me all this freedom and liberty that I am very, very grateful for that doesn't exist in China. And so if China is going to be able to get some kind of global hegemonic upper hand over that when they are moving away in that direction, I have every solid reason to care about that. If my government is like looking at like data and stuff like that, there are rules, there are constitutional. What's the word? I'm fucking up my wording. There are constitutional precedents that prevent my government from kicking me out without a good reason. If I am, and like you said like, oh my god, the government can kick us out if they find out that we are involved in fucking ISIS or whatever, and they can imprison us and shit. Yes. Because those are enemies of my country and everything that I value in my country. Of course I want those people arrested. They are aiding and embedding in things that are going to fundamentally destroy my way of life if we let them go unchecked. That's the issue. So yeah, obviously I'm going to care about that. I'm not saying this to be mean. I just don't think you understand what the positions are. It's not that people aren't concerned about their own governments. I'm concerned about shit my own government does. But as far as national security is concerned, yeah, I'm going to be concerned about my national security because my nation is not the same as China's nation. Nobody is concerned about losing social credit in China over things. Nobody who's a China hawk thinks that that's something that's going to happen to them. I don't know if you've just not talked to people like that too much, Socrates, or what, But that's like the place that I'm coming from is the general place that China hawks are coming from. That's all I'm going to say about that. But as far as banning TikTok, tying it back to the original topic, ban it if there is evidence that the data is being sold off to the CCP. But if the CEO is going to, make sure that shit's more secure in our nations, I'm fine with that too. So, and it's not a Republican thing. I will add this at the end. It's not a Republican thing specifically. In Canada, for example, all of our parties in bipartisan agreement just banned government officials from using TikTok. So the idea that this is just so the idea that this is, and if it's in the US, I'm not as familiar with the US, but I'm just saying, like, the idea that this is like some partisan thing, it's like some right-wing thing, some Republican thing, that's just not true. Like, everybody should be concerned about their national security, left-wing, right-wing, or center. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so I want to
before I open it up. That's fine. Before I open it up to the panel, calm down just for a second. I want to make sure that me and Jack are going to stay on the sidelines for a while, just so we can give you guys time to breathe. And then also, Layman, you would be a credit to the Republican Party.
That's true. Maybe I'm more right-wing than I thought I was. I don't view myself as right-wing at all.
So fight.
So just two quick things. So are you as concerned about Google selling its data or just giving its data to the U.S. government?
Can I pause for a fact?
No, I'm not as concerned to answer that.
Okay, but I want to fact check who is banned from using TikTok specifically. Are we talking appointed or electeds?
Electeds, to my understanding, and appointed. I believe it's just across the board. They never specified that. They just said across the board. If you work in a public service, like, you can't use TikTok. Like,
that sounds like appointed. That sounds like appointed and career government officials, because otherwise we've got a freaking, usual GOP hypocrisy on free speech. Because anyone who's elected,
I'm talking about when I said that, I was talking about Canada, not.
We can talk about the U.S.
Oh, that's right. Canada doesn't have freedom of speech. Boom.
Yes, we do. Sorry, I'm just.
So the United States. So what the United States did, just for the point of clarity, is that they banned having TikTok on any government device. And if you are working with or in around sensitive areas, you can't have your device have that on there as well. So talking to national security areas, stuff like that, because it does track geolocation. Which makes sense. That's what they did.
Sure, but there's like fitness trackers that have revealed secret government bases,
and those fitness and in those instances, the government banned those as well.
Mm-hmm. But that's such a specific case. Saying like, okay, if you have some like government secrets on this phone, it shouldn't have this app on that phone. Is very different from saying all the American public needs to have that level of concern.
Okay, let me wrap this up. This is so let me wrap this up real quick. This is an easy W for America, and it's an easy W for corporations. Bring your own device. Recently caused like LastPass data breach. Bring your own device is garbage. So yeah, the U.S. government is fine banning anything they freaking want to ban for security purposes because security matters. Same thing with corporations. Yeah. Don't fucking care.
I can't install random shit on my work laptop. Of course, yeah.
Okay. But can I ask you a question, Socrates? Do you think that you keep analogizing the U.S. government and the Chinese government as far as like the data they have access to? Mm-hmm. Do you think these are the same government?
Well, I don't think it's the same. I think they're.
When I say the same, I don't mean holistically the same. Sure. I mean morally the same.
Threats to kind of like to freedom across the world, something like that.
Yes.
To like liberalism broadly.
Sure.
That would be downstream from that broadly.
Sure. Okay. So I'll give you some easy W's. I think there's definitely things that China's doing that are like much more draconian than what the U.S. is doing. So in terms of the Great Firewall, in terms of like not letting access go through, in terms of censoring, like you're not allowed to literally just talk about
the Uyghurs.
In terms of the Uyghurs, in terms
of
one-child
policy.
Yeah. Well, they don't have one-child policy anymore,
right? For Han,
they were permitted to enact a policy like that.
Of course, that was pretty extreme, right? So and social credit system is like not something we have yet, but that's pretty bad. So I'm not saying that they're equivalent in terms of those things, but America also invades places. We also spy on all of our citizens, and we were spying on like Angela Merkel, and that became like kind of an issue. We're like striking places like. So I'm not trying to make an equivalence between these two governments or say that like, oh, both of us are draconian in terms of freedom, but this idea that like, America good, America freedom, China bad, China no freedom, like that.
Comparatively, though, yes, that's absolutely valid. China, you don't have a freedom of expression. You don't have bodily autonomy. You don't have a right to life. These are very, very important institutional.
Can I bridge this gap?
Yeah, sure.
So Socrates, I think his primary, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and Layman, you correct me if I'm wrong, please. All right. So I just want to try to bridge this gap here. Socrates seems to care more about what the United States is doing because he lives here, and those policies directly affect him.
Yeah.
Whether or not doesn't care about what China is doing, I don't know. He didn't get into that, but exactly that's where it's at. So
exactly. That's very accurate. So on a broader scale, I do care about the CCP. I do care about ways that they can do imperialism and take away freedom from, of course, what they're doing to their own citizens is not good, but ways that they could export that could be bad too. But
the thing is that if they grow as in, sorry, just
go ahead.
Yeah, it's just the thing is that like, yeah, sure, we can atomize it so much that like it just exists in their borders and our shit only exists in our borders. Well, not literally our borders, but our Western borders, let's say, our North American borders.
Sphere of influence.
Yeah. But the issue is that if you're allowing this country to economically build it so much that it's going to be able to acquire the resources to have further influence, take people's further data, use that against foreign governments, and if they have the military power and keep growing their economy and keep growing their military power, they're going to be able to do these things by force. They're going to have even more access to technology and even more access to resources that they can then use to imperialize us. In Canada recently, we had a pretty big scare with this recently, where there was a MP in Ontario who was... It didn't influence our election, but there was an attempt to meddle from the CCP that was found by our Central Intelligence Agency, right? And we can't just let shit like that slide. And so my concern with the sort of whataboutism is like, well, what about our own government? What about this? What about the fact that we also gather data? That to me, when you said that, rang so many alarm bells in my head that I just feel that it gave off a completely different impression than what you're saying right now.
If you don't mind, everybody else on the panel, I just want to respond to those several things. So,
then can I go, please?
First of all, so Cypher hit the nail on the head in terms of where I was coming from. I'm not saying like necessarily that America and China are equivalent. So if I was like the UN or some third party or something, or some more neutral third party, then I would like rule in that way. I'm saying me as an American citizen, I care in a really outsized manner about what like China's doing versus what America's doing, because I can be jailed by America. I can't be jailed by China. Not yet. I'm not saying maybe it could never get there. They'll imperialize us down the line. But right now, I do care about those things in a really different way. It's not a whataboutism because it affects me in a drastically outsized manner. The other issue, so you're talking about China gaining economic power, imperializing more and more. It's a losing game to try to like whack-a-mole, knock other nations down, prevent them from growing, keep America on top. We have to grow by growing. We can't just keep trying to, especially China. Sorry, Cypher. We can't just try to keep their. I mean, somebody who knows more about this can tell me how close they are to this point, or if they're already at this point, where if we start trying to fuck with enough of their shit, they're just going to say, fuck you, we have enough trade partners. We actually don't give a fuck.
No, but that's why my
this one's complicated.
Is cut off from China, right? I would have new approaches to that I would support, which is to incrementally, over time, find alternative nations to build trade deals with that can eventually incrementally phase out of China and replace China, like what Obama did with the TPP.
Building trade deals with other nations is the kind of thing that China is doing. That's actual growth. But saying, hey, we're going to build your app because it's going to help propel you toward like greater
Well, to be
heights.
clear,
But that's
I'm not-
fundamentally losing game in
be
the long
clear,
term.
I
Maybe we
didn't
can get away with
support
it a
the app
bit more.
ban. To be clear, I didn't support the app ban. I'm giving a different position. But
Okay.
yeah, my position is the phasing out of trade with China route, and then as we are doing that over time, because we're trying to find ways to phase out, we also have to take national. You also have to be concerned about your national security too. So in Canada recently, Rare Trudeau W, he banned Huawei from Canadian, like just completely banned it.
Probably
You're
a good
not
thing.
allowed to operate within Canada. That's good because you have a.
I make
you
good
have this.
phones though. I don't know.
Pardon?
Did
I'd,
he ban the
wait,
phone
do
or
we,
did he ban the site towers?
business,
There's
yeah.
a
He banned
minute
the.
difference. The completely?
He banned. He banned the business, and
Gotcha.
so they're not allowed to practice within the country. That was what he did.
Okay.
No employees.
Which is good.
Okay.
So like that. So like you can do things like that while also trying to find like alternative trading partners as well. It'd be nice if the U.S. was a better cooperator in that because Biden's kind of being a jackass to Canada right now. Everybody who knows me knows how triggered I am by Biden's fucking perpetual trade war with Canada. Bringing it in he's importing that from Trump. Trump did it too.
Fucking
I'm not gonna
milk.
act like
Actually,
I'm
but
biting my tongue
Now he's
so
in hockey
fucking much
sticks.
right now.
So is it okay if I jump in on this? Because I have some
Yeah, go
points
for it,
to
buddy.
help
Jump.
layman here, and I have some
Socrates
points
and
to
I have
help
just
Socrates
debated
here.
each other strongly,
Alright.
so we're done now.
So to layman's point about what China is doing as far as imperializing other countries, this is especially true in the Southeast Asia, to include to include Australia, the Philippines, Japan, Taiwan,
Zealand.
South Korea, etc., etc., etc. New Zealand. That's the word I couldn't think of. New Zealand, etc. So China has been doing this. They've been influencing governments in a similar way they've been trying to influence Taiwan's government in order to bring it back into the fold. China wants to be the Southeast Asia hegemon because that is historically where its position has been positioned itself. And Xi Jinping, just like every other strong man on the face of the planet, wants to be a great. And how do you become a great? You imperialize the fuck out of other nations. So that is where they're going to. So that's one point. The second point is that TikTok, just like every other social media app, is collecting every single point of data they can on you. They're collecting whatever web browsers you have open on your phone. They're collecting your geolocation. They know exactly where you're at all times on the app and what you're looking at and things like that. But my point is, and this is what it's going to probably support Socrates here, is that is a problem generally with social media, not just TikTok. And what I would like to see the US do is take that approach that they're trying to take to TikTok with banning it and say, no, we're not going to go this route. We're going to go a different route where we're going to say, do things such as age gating the internet. I'm not saying the kids can't get on the internet at all, but age gating it. Doing things like you have control over your data, the internet entirely. Yes. We're on the same page here.
So, I thought you were saying, sorry, you said internet and I was thinking social media.
We just need a great reset for how we govern the internet.
I mean,
unironically, yes.
Yes.
Fucking Ancapistan on the internet and nobody gives a shit.
Yep. And so there's all these problems that we need to have addressed, and it's going to require threading the needle because I still care about free speech, rights of adults.
And we need net neutrality, which is actually really
right
critical.
to privacy. Well,
the big thing with the big pushback against regulating the internet for anything is usually right to privacy. Even if people will say free speech stuff too, but the free speech stuff is like downstream from it a lot of the time. So right to privacy is the big thing.
The reason that I say that the right to privacy thing is a little bit of a to me is because I don't think if you're speaking on the internet, you have a right to necessarily be anonymous. And I think a lot of the problems that we're having as far as social political are concerned are done by nefarious actors masquerading around as people that they aren't with thousands of accounts. And that is causing problems. And that is exactly what China does to Southeast Asia. That's what Russia does to all of Eastern Europe. That is what the United States does in South America. It is a massive problem that is happening on a global stage. And if we make it to where we agree as a globe to or hey, if not as a global, silo the fucking internet. Who gives a shit, right? If we tackle those problems, then China having TikTok doesn't fucking matter because then all the other issues are fixed and they can have their little sphere of influence on the internet just like everybody else. Who cares?
Okay, this is going to sound ludicrous, but this is the most American solution to solving the issue with like teenage depression, anxiety, and whatever related to social media. Open them up to fucking lawsuits. If you have a kid who kills himself or is depressed, and social media should have like the same kind of warning label that like cigarettes have, like this may cause these mental health conditions.
Okay.
If some shit goes wrong, you should be able to sue a social media company for their addictive and antisocial influence on individuals.
Hell
because
And this is where I disagree.
That's going to be really hard to implement.
That would
Yeah,
be
It's
Section
going to be hard to implement, but once they implement it, it's going to be great.
No, so Section 230 and what prevents the lawsuits from happening is the only reason why we have social media in the first place. It's the only reason we're able to talk on this platform. That's the only reason that we're able to have Twitch.
Just a point of clarification. That's the standard that makes it so they can't be sued for things that are on the platform, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about the structure of the platforms themselves.
You're talking about the algorithmic pushing things.
Designed to be addictive.
Like just to maybe help me understand. So like I'm just going to come up with a hypothetical example of this playing out in practice. So if let's say we had a law where we age gated, like the based people on here said they support, which I also support. If we did that, and then it turned out that there was like a company that was not successfully age gating correctly. You're saying that people should be able, like parents should be able to like sue those companies for not following that regulation, right?
So I'm talking about something slightly different, which I would have to think exactly how I feel about that, because
because if we're going to age gate it, right, and if there's no legal penalties, then
but
so here's
let me describe first just what I'm talking about, which is there's all of these companies put so much R&D into being addicting, and potentially even using the fact that they make people feel shitty about themselves as an addictive.
It's how they make money.
It's how they make money.
Yeah, it's how they make money.
That's the fact.
And when you go on social media, you're pretty much. I'm gonna just say it. When you scroll through Instagram, you see a bunch of people who look, let's just be honest, who probably look better than you, and you're like, damn, why can't I be like them?
Yeah, that's one example. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's more than individuals on the app. It's the apps themselves are designed to be this way. Facebook is trying to figure out how to keep you on it using what I would say are unethical means. And
there's
who wants to go? Because we all have something to say. I think Flow Trace should go simply because he hasn't spoken.
I think I think the trouble with trying to age gate the internet, because I am on the based age gate the internet take, and I would be curious to see where my fellow age gating the internet supporters are at, is that I think that if you're going to do this, it's not going to be very easy to do. The reality is that there's probably only one entity that's going to be able to successfully gate the internet and access to it for the entire population, and that's the government. And when you start saying that, people don't like the sound of that, because we probably absolutely do. If we want to seriously tackle the problem, I mean, come on, I think we're all pretty young people here. We're all tech savvy. We know that like the internet blockers do not work unless they're implemented on a systemic level. If you, it's similar to how Russia tackled Russia when Russia invaded Ukraine. The way that they tackled dissidents accessing the internet was they just went to the ISPs and like, okay, open up, time to let the FSB agents inside and do whatever the fuck we want to do. That's the only way we get out to do this. And that is ultimately the only step because it's also the problem of age verification. Government's the only one that can do that. It's actually really interesting. In South Korea, you have to submit basically what is the equivalent of your government ID to make a League of Legends account. Shit like that is the future, and it's where we're moving to. If you ever see a Discord that deals with lots of toxic stuff, how do they solve it? They make age verification with, or rather not age verification, they use email or phone number verification. And these things always tie back to, there's only one entity that can actually stop and be like, stop! We get to stop you and not let you go through unless you comply with us, and that's the government. And that's a really hard thing, especially in the United States of America, to get people on board with.
There also might be
agree with that.
more pragmatic ways
that...
to do that too.
Go
on.
No, go on.
So,
go on.
China does it,
and then I can talk about it.
It's called a Chinese ID. It's called, like, if you're underage, they regulate how you use the internet. So,
gamer tag.
Is China gonna save us? Sorry.
No.
I think the South Korean model is a bit better than the Chinese model. South Korea
Also state
basically
ID,
uses
yeah.
the equivalent. Yes, it's the equivalent of a social security number, and I'm okay with that. Now, there's other ways to go
Yeah.
about it to what Layman is saying, but those have other complications with it and might even be more
Well, what I'm
privacy
thinking is
intruding things like biometric data where they can scan your face and tell how old you
That's
are
not what
based on
that's
your
not what
irises
I'm getting
and
at.
stuff like that. I didn't
not
say that's
getting
what you're getting at. I'm saying
Okay.
that there's other ways that we can actually enforce that doesn't require the government to be necessarily directly involved, but that's massive data
Yeah.
being
So the way that I'm thinking about it is like, so in France, as much as I don't like that fucking country, something that Macron did in, I think it was 2019, is he brought in some regulations for people who can access pornography, and he did it in a different way than like a lot of other countries do. Like he did it different than the UK does it. From what I understand, or from what my fellow Frenchies have told me, my francophones have told me, is basically the way he did it was he just made it so like, hey, if you're going to use a porn site, just you have to pay for it with a credit card, and like that's basically it. So you don't even have to necessarily age gate it because children aren't going to have credit cards, right? It's going to be their fucking parents. So like,
I mean,
like
nowadays
that can be a little more well, okay, but my point is
By the time
that
we actually set that apart, they may.
yeah.
regardless, like things like that, I think could
It's
be a
step in the
little
right
more pragmatic. That would be a little more pragmatic as far as like, still protecting people's right to privacy, because it's like it's a company taking your credit card, right? Like every company who you pay for your credit card with does that already, right? So like, yeah.
So here's the reason why I am not going to say that's a solution, because where my primary focus isn't necessarily on how it's damaging kids, although that is the number 2 thing that I have concern with. It is how foreign governments and current political actors are manipulating things. So when
Those
Twitter's
are
like,
solutions, I agree.
Yes. So when Elon Musk said, we're going to fix Twitter by doing a verification of your identity, I'm like, great. They're going to do what Facebook does when you set up a business account. You literally have to give your government ID to Facebook to set up a business account on Facebook, and you have to redo it every 3 to 6 months. I don't remember the exact time frame. And you have to keep doing that, and that is how you get your verified business on Facebook. And I was like, if they make Twitter Blue that, and then they give you a bunch of other stuff, I'm all in on Elon Musk. I will gobble him down for like the best they've ever gotten, because that would literally fix the problem. But what did he do instead? He simply monetized disinformation and political actors by making it $8 to get clout. And now you have every single fuckwit on the internet that has anything that they want to do when it regards to politics, paying for an $8 Twitter Blue checkmark, whatever, and coming into my fucking feed and ruining my life. So that's why I want age verification. That's why I want
that to me is not
ID.
That's not a good reason to age verification, in my opinion. But
but you get where I'm coming from, at least.
We need more than that. We need better. We need to like so we can't really be this intrusive, but we also have a serious problem of age and age of access and age of performance on TikTok. And I don't know if you're ready for it, but like the pedo hunter stuff is coming to TikTok, and
yes, I know. It's already here. It's not coming. It's already here, buddy.
Okay. So why isn't that part of the conversation, like the national conversation? Why isn't it there? Why isn't it like,
because nobody knows about it. That's why it isn't.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. I'll be your political consultant. If you want access to this, Soyatl, come get me. This is.
Oh God.
Yeah, this is what we're looking at.
For the people that don't know what you're talking about, can you give just a brief explanation of what those?
So basically,
those
TikTok does have enforcement. They do have enforcement. Like they detect the faces using AI. They detect faces in the application. Yes. And if you have a young face, if your face is too young, you get banned. Yes, people who are adults will get banned for this.
Holy base.
Yeah. So yeah, you get banned for it. So kids are putting fucking anonymous masks on themselves and dancing around. That's what's happening.
So the issue with that, though, then comes with the biometric data that they're tracking. In order to do that, they track all sorts of other stuff, which gives them greater insight into how things are doing. Everybody shat on the congressman that asked him, are you tracking the eye movement to understand when the pupils dilate, when they find something they really like?
Yep.
That the technology to do that also opens it up to do that. And there's no reason to disbelieve that the company's not doing it, because every company that does biometric data is doing that shit.
Right.
So
they need that data. They need that data to make sure that every human face that's on screen is an adult
age
face. Yes,
but to my understanding, they, based off of what the owner of TikTok said, he said that it's just based off of like when you enter. He said it doesn't track that.
How does it work for furries?
That's standard age gating. Yeah, that's standard age gating. That's called an age gate, and so you attest. The user attests that they are of age, and yet people get banned when they do performances and they show themselves and reveal themselves to be not of age.
So TikTok, what TikTok is doing
because they post the video publicly, so they see it's not.
They're initially asking for that age verification, and then they're going through using all that biometric data to actually guess how old they are. Right. And that same data that goes into that also can go into making the website more addictive and also selling you ads and everything else like that. So this is why I think that the government ID verification thing is probably the best one to go about it. And I know, but I also don't care. I also don't care about people being anonymous on the internet. I think that is massively, massively undermined social cohesion and order and all the things that we actually care about as far as having a cohesive polity. So
the reality is that social media is very new, and we're still trying to get used to it.
Yes.
If social media were cars, we'd be in the stage where we don't have seatbelts or airbags yet.
Exactly.
Now, there's no guarantee that we have no guarantee that technology is around the corner. But I do think there are reasons to assume or not assume, but to hope that it's going to get better. I think the fact that you now have kids being raised by people that themselves grew up with social media, that's actually going to be a legitimate 2.0, a turning point. I think more broadly, when we talk about banning TikTok versus not banning TikTok, it's sort of like it's a flashpoint of a much larger issue, and that is like the increasing interconnection that occurs on the global stage, but digitally. It's a lot more amorphous, it's a lot more difficult to track, and it's a lot more difficult to understand. And that can be scary, that can be dangerous, and there's no doubt that China is reaping advantages from that. But it's a two-way street. We talked about it earlier, but China has had to do a bunch of the Chinese government has had to tell Chinese TikTok, not the American branch, but Chinese TikTok, you need to be banning this, you need to be banning that. This is absolutely a two-way street. And I think that the risk of fracturing the internet, where you're already starting to see, for example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, a lot of their stuff is now backboned in such a way that it doesn't need to rely on ICANN or servers outside of Russia. I think that world is a lot more scary. The idea that there would be a Chinese internet, a Russian internet, a American internet, a European internet, I think that is ultimately a much bigger risk than the idea that China's going to extract some advantage while also extracting some losses from being able to access America via TikTok. Ultimately, their dependency on the global internet is good for U.S. power, and we should, I think, try to keep them on board.
And I do not agree with. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's good for world peace. The fact that people from different countries can talk to each other on Counter-Strike. Like the fact that we can just freely chat with each other, even if we come with our preconceptions, but the fact that we have some kind of integrated internet is because we see what the fractioning of internet and echo chambers does within the US, of the ways that people end up on different platforms or in different sub-communities, and how much we end up in different realities and can't talk to each other. And this happens more and more globally. This is a really, really big problem, because we have globalization in terms of weapons, in terms of trade and whatever, but not in terms of communication, not in terms of having any sense of a global community. That's a really bad.
There will never be a global community, but I agree.
I don't think there will. I don't think a global community of one world government, although I think that would be ultimately.
No, he's not saying government. He's not saying government.
Yeah,
he's saying
don't get me excited.
Connected socially as a connected internet. There's something I want to say in terms of. So to me, I feel like I have these two, in this case, opposing ideals in my head, which is that the internet has to be free. Anybody should be able to get onto any website in general without the government impeding them and saying hey, show me some kind of identification. On the other hand, a company a company like Pornhub, say, that either does know or has to know at some level that a huge amount of their viewer base are probably pretty underage, young kids, and they're making just an obscene amount of money off of getting children addicted to pornography.
Dude, I can Canada pill you for a set. Well, not Canada
Okay.
pill, but give you some lore about that.
Yeah,
because
lore me.
Pornhub is based in Canada. In fact, its parent company.
for real?
A lot of here's
Lime
a fun
something.
fact. Here's a fun fact. This is why Canada is the best country to do
God, you
these
guys
kinds
suck
of
so bad.
regulatory
Jesus
policies
Christ.
in Quebec. Well, it's just Quebec. In Quebec,
Fair enough.
this is like the Coomer Central of like the fucking globe is Quebec. Fucking Pornhub and what are the other porn sites that are?
They're all on
I would've known.
all
I would
the
not know.
popular porn sites that you can think of that you can freely access that you don't have to pay for
Mhm.
are all coming out of Quebec. Like all of them. And if you
Fascinating.
go to Quebec, I went to Quebec when I was 13 years old. I just walked into a fucking sex shop. Nobody stopped me. I could just go in,
It's
fucking
very French.
touch the dildos. Yeah, because they like to LARP as France, right? So they
Yeah.
need
Mhm.
the acceptability of sexual activity to be as low in age as possible. As you know, it's a horrible
Legal age in
society. I
France
don't like
just raised to 14. So
Macron, do you guys know
Raised.
Macron, Laura, and his wife?
Raised.
yes, right.
But what was it before?
It was 13, 12 or
it was like
13.
Yeah.
13.
Oh God.
Yeah, based Macron, by the way. I like
And
that.
Cap
I love
Central.
Macron. I love Macron
Macron
because
is a
he's
king.
anti-French. It's fucking awesome.
It was raised
He
from
does hate his own people.
Anyway, yeah, based of him. Anyway, going back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is that like like all that shit is happening in Canada. Like,
So how do
it's
they
the
deal with
sword.
it though? For their own.
Well, we're not
I
dealing
think
with it. That's the problem.
You're just saying
But
what the problem is that they had a solution.
No. Well, there's a solution happening now. It just hasn't come into effect yet. So
It's paying
So
for,
Justin Trudeau recently proposed this bill. It's called C11. It was very controversial because people were like, "Oh my god, it's going to censor the internet." It was basically just we have these quotas on certain like artistic industries and stuff in Canada where like a certain percentage of their content has to be like from Canada basically. It was just this like nationalistic thing we did in like the 70s that we just kept, never got rid of. So Justin Trudeau's just
Canadian porn now.
yeah. So well, not with porn specifically, but Justin Trudeau was trying to do this with like YouTube and Netflix, I think, for the most part. And so it's passed the House and it's in the Senate right now. And a lot of the more conservative senators were like, okay, look, I'm okay with this as long as we include porn. So they're having that debate right now in the Senate. So we might actually be able to crack down.
Actually,
That's cool.
It is based as fuck. So we might actually be able to crack down on this problem because of the Senate. And I think stuff like that, I'm sure as we all agree, is like a good step forward. So that's the solution I was offering to you, Socrates.
So
One solution.
interesting.
I have some points, further points that I want to make. So the West Dude in chat made a point that I was actually going to make. So the siloing of the internet based on countries or philosophies is already underway. China, Saudi, pretty much every Middle Eastern country, North Korea. You have smatterings of this happening in Russia and Eastern Europe, and I'm sure at some point you'll see it happen in France because fuck French. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But so I think that that kind of world is something that we're actually on the cusp of actually already going to, which is why I think that, well, then if they silo the internet, we just cut them off from us so that they can't influence our stuff, and that's just the way it's going to be because we're not able to penetrate the Great Firewall of China and some things like that. Or we can go the other route and just make the tools so they can all break through that wall.
We should be the beacon of freedom where we say we're actually fucking free here. Yeah.
We should.
Only
So
Nixon can go to
developing
China, only
VPNs that
Trump
can
unban TikTok.
Yeah, so going through the technology and offering it for free to like Chinese dissidents about like VPNs that can break through the wall or whatever else like that. Based as fuck, like we can do it that way too.
Except when
As
you
far
give that
as-
technology to the foreign pedos, and then what's going on?
What's
Like,
the
I mean,
what are
foreign
they-
the United States is already exporting its pedophilia abroad, so I'm really not too concerned about that.
Oh,
You should be.
It is. I mean, yeah,
So,
sorry.
The base issue is it's like these are band-aids on top of like a gaping wound of trying to keep kids off of Pornhub is like important, and that's a kind
I
of
don't
a
know if
harm
it's just a
reduction.
band-aid,
So-
right? We
so
haven't
I
really
have a
played out
solution
the
for that.
experiments yet.
So if all we care about if most people only care about the issues of like kids having access to internet that's addictive and bad for them, porn, social media, or whatever, that can be solved by just making it to where you make it illegal to offer the service for free. if you do that, if porn isn't free, that a lot more people are not going to be accessing.
It's like
porn,
a different
and
way of
kids
doing a
certainly
sales
aren't.
tax, but in a more
Yeah.
It'll be a minimum based on category, or like how would that work?
Oh my God! This is how we get UBI. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Like, what is?
But you can do it in a number of different ways. Like category could be the way you do it. You have a minimum amount of hours for a free service, and then you have to pay for it. Whatever, right?
I don't think. No, I think
that's interesting.
I'm talking about like social media, not necessarily porn. I think porn should not be allowed to be free at all.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if we're talking about just caring about kids, simply making it to where there's a cost associated with that, and changing the business model to where they focus on getting us as consumers to actually pay for the product, I think that would be a great step forward.
I'm skeptical of having like governments try to issue time to be on computers and stuff. I don't really know how that would.
Weird, yeah.
That seems like it would require.
So South Korea does this. South Korea does this. A couple other countries do these things. They basically what they do is if you have a free tier, then all you're allowed to do is that you just make the company be like, hey, you can only give 2 hours of free time on this, and then you have to charge some sort of money. Then you pay for it.
The kids are obviously not going to like do that, right? Like they're not going to be able to.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I would support that then. That's good.
There's a way to do that. It doesn't fix any of the issues that I bring up as far as foreign government actors.
But that's a different issue, right? We're talking about the kids too. That was also a concern you had.
Yes, but this brings it back to TikTok, which is what we're talking about, and the reason why governments are trying to ban that is because they believe of the influence that it's having, not just on children, although that's the wedge they're going through, but also the broader polity. So if we can fix that issue by associating some cost with it.
Well, the issue they have is data being given to the CCP.
Correct.
Kids aren't really brought up very much. I'm sure a lot of them fucking kids on TikTok.
They brought up.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but absolutely, like the main thing is selling data to the CCP, and that is a concern.
That is the main thing, and then you go 2 levels down in the think people, and then they're talking about kids being manipulated into doing things that they don't like, and they're talking about the United States polity being.
That's not a TikTok specific thing, though, right? That
it is not.
Right, there's an issue with that with social media in general. So
I know that's what I'm talking about.
YouTube is much better at enforcing this. Facebook probably needs to catch up. Like Facebook and sexual content is a serious problem. If you spend any time on Reels, Facebook is trash. You get spammed with porn all the time.
Wow, that sounds.
I don't get spammed with porn.
I'm sorry, I'm a coomer. I guess.
Awful. That
I get shown plant videos.
Usually it's based off of what the consumers get when you get recommended stuff like that, okay? I don't think the kids...
I'll be public. Yeah, sure, fine.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine. I don't care if people watch... I don't care if adults watch porn.
I don't care if adults watch... Yeah, it's... I'd rather people not, but I'm not going to.
How do we solve that issue? It's a wider issue of social media and influence and everything.
No,
it's the same topic.
I don't have the time.
So this is actually slightly easier.
We're pretty much out of time.
Yeah, we're pretty much out of time.
Okay. I do have to head off.
So let me make one final comment on just why this is a potentially solvable problem. Because we're not going to prevent kids from seeing porn on the internet. What I think we can do that's feasible, maybe, and similar to maybe social media, this could apply as well. We could do something to make it so that, like, companies like Pornhub that everybody knows about is making billions, isn't making so much money with their current business model. Or so like the analogy would be like, okay, we can't stop people from buying tobacco and rolling their own cigarettes, but we can't have Marlboro like marketing to kids. That would be the analogy. It's like we're not going to prevent this from existing. We're not going to
eliminate it, but we can discourage it and make it less prevalent in culture.
We can tax the externalities. Yeah.
Yes. There's like these like really big companies that everybody knows about that are doing this to such a high degree. Like we could knock them down a peg, which is a much more solvable problem.
On top of everything we said too, we should syntax porn. I'm just going to throw that out there.
No, that's fine. I'm okay with this. No, I completely agree. I'm not a libertarian.
I'm surprised. Okay.
Why?
Liberals usually give me a hard time with that.
with
but I
syntax,
have a
are you talking
right.
about lefties?
But I have a right to come. I have a right. It's my fundamental right to come.
We're left.
that's
we're red left, not fucking yellow left. Come
He
on.
fucking isn't. Cypher fucking is.
Yeah, I'm
Cypher's a
not red.
fucking libtard. Okay.
I am
No
I am
tax.
sock dem, but that's all right.
No tax.
It's the
It's
same,
written
it's the
erotica.
same thing, motherfucker.
No.
Neoliberalism
Tax. It's
ascendancy.
written erotica, and we can solve the
Yeah.
education crisis at the same time.
I agree.
Okay.
I think these are all good
Alright.
good solvable things.
All right, we all agree. Incredible. Tiberius, you take us out, brother.
Panel
okay?
success.
It is time to wrap this one up. We will probably be doing an open panel at least for a little bit afterward, but this is the end of the official segment of the Saturday Night Lights. I hope you all enjoyed yourself. It was definitely far more feisty than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
Like Flow Trace is usually
yeah.
pretty combative, and then he was just like getting overrun, so that was shocking.
Yeah.
But I hope you all did have a good time. If you did enjoy this particular program, definitely help us out. Give us a sub, give us a follow, donate. The links are down below. Hell, we've got an Amazon wish list down there for you. So all those ways you can help us out. But we're not quite done yet. We're going to be opening up to people who are part of the Discord. If they want to kind of roll in here, chat with us, meme and dream, you're welcome to do so. And we'll probably move on to a different topic unless somebody wants to beat this one to death. But before we go, I have to give an outro to the wonderful Layman. It's good to see you, Joe.
Good to see you too, man. Yeah, I'm Layman. If you liked hearing what I had to say, if you're interested in hearing more, I'm cutting out a bit. If you're interested in hearing more of what I have to say, you can follow me on Twitter. I have a really goofy, boomer, stupid that I recently made my Twitter. If you look up a guy being a guy, okay, you'll find Layman there. That's my Twitter. Okay?
Nice.
You can find me on Twitter there. You can also find me on YouTube. If you just search Layman, you'll find me on YouTube. If you look at the screen, if I'm on the screen, that is the profile picture that you will see on all platforms. If you are looking for that person, that is me. I am that person. Ty, thank you for letting me come on. And finally, I get to... This is the first time where I've been on a panel where I got to just shit talk China relentlessly. I've never had that opportunity yet. I've been looking for it.
I'm gonna let you do it too. I love when people shit on
Cool.
China because
Yeah, fuck
they're
China.
not communist.
Bipartisan. I never even said it's your kind of communism, so that's fine.
No,
But,
but they're not
so-
communists. They're just shitbags.
I don't want to. Okay, I don't care. Anyway, so I don't care what it is. It's fucking bad. Okay, it's bad. Anyway, so yeah. Thanks for letting me on, Ty. Thanks for fucking shitpost about China and the internet and Coomers and all that stuff. And you can follow me where I said to follow me. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, you're awesome. I'm glad we got you on this week. I've actually recommended you be on the list a couple of times previously because I was like, okay, I need him to argue with KOE. I need him to argue with this person just because you.
Oh, if you ever
have-
get
you have-
KOE on, please.
we
I
had
didn't
him on
want
a couple of weeks ago.
Wait, because I have
I've
what?
got an axe
Because I
to
have what?
grind.
I didn't want to subject you to that. I'm sorry, Layman.
Wait, because I have what?
You have a certain way of dealing with the topics that even if you make them heated, you also will make them funny. And that is a great energy for panels that a lot of these end up lacking and end up devolving into screeching matches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Entertaining but civil.
Mhm.
Also, Cypher, you should die in a car wreck. I'm just kidding. I was just. It was a joke. It was a joke.
Hey, what the fuck did I do?
Oh my
Good lord.
I tell that to everybody who,
Should you say
I
like a
wanna make that joke.
snowmobile wreck or something?
Oh,
because people tell me that all the time. They're like,
In
"You're so
Minecraft.
civil," and then I tell someone to die in a car wreck. That's my thing. So
The game.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
actually, they recently ruled that doesn't matter if they know that you're intending it as an actual threat. That's the issue.
Exactly.
In Minecraft, shit doesn't fucking help you. Just so
Exactly.
you know.
oh, I know.
so like
When I read that case, it blew my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, a case actually had to go through court on this?
That's amazing.
Oh my god!
So there you go. Everybody, just be honest. Don't say in Minecraft. There.
I need serious help. I
Mega
need
Chad.
serious mental help. Okay. Fuck. Where the hell were we?
Yeah, this is outro.
Yeah.
Are we all gonna move into the open?
Let's stay in here for a bit. If I don't have to move, then the better off we are.
Yeah,
I do have to dip, just so
I know
everybody
you
knows.
do. So
okay,
why
I'm
are you
just-
still here? I love you.
Oh, I know. I was just waiting for a transition out. Okay.
Oh,
Goodbye,
hey,
everybody. Thank you.
Before
Hi,
one
Lehman.
last thing before
Good to
you
see you.
go. Are you going to be in Indiana anytime soon?
Not until probably in the fall. I'll
That's
let
fine.
you know though. I'll let you
Yes,
know.
you better. The last time you're just like, I don't have time, and I'm like, dude, you're 2 hours away. I'm gonna beat you with a stick.
I was celebrating Christmas and New Year's.
I
was
don't
busy.
care,
Christmas.
I know.
dude.
Okay,
He
You're
would have
here,
drove
like-
and meet you.
we'll be
Yeah,
in
like,
touch, Ty.
straight up. All right, get out of here. Take
We'll be
care.
in touch. Thank you.
All right. And by the way, if anyone does happen to come into the vicinity of the great state of Indiana, or surrounding areas, like Nashville's 3 hours from here. Like, if you all want to meet up, like I will do like a mini TwitchCon with a couple of folks. I'm totally on my board.
Yep.
I am planning on doing a little bit of traveling this year, just out of the fact that I went on hiatus last year. So official announcement. I will be in Omaha on that weekend of Memorial Day. So if anyone is up in that general area or wants to meet me there, that's absolutely something y'all can do. Debating on if I'm going to go anywhere for the July 4th weekend, and then also what's the one right before school starts?
Labor Day.
That's Labor Day.
Yeah, it's Labor Day. Labor Day weekend is on the board for planning, and I'm just throwing this out here. Might be Texas. Just saying, might be Texas. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's all for me on that one. What do we want to go for? What's our chat going to be now?
I also have to head out.
I have to
I
go to the
wanna-
restroom, so I'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right,
can
so
I,
Z needs an outro, so go ahead, sir.
all right.
You can find me at the Man of Z on Twitch. Thank you for having me. I didn't want to sound like Joe Biden. I meant a puppet. So yeah.
All right, fair enough. Thank
Nice
you
to
very
meet you.
much. Take care, Z, and we'll catch you next time. Soy, are you out today?
I do. I want to throw a topic. Anyone has questions about the Monticello nuclear plant? Of course, I'm here to deliver you the facts. Fact number one: Monticello disclosed to the NRC in November of last year that they did have a tritium leak. This is the first tritium leak at a U.S. nuclear plant in 7 years. Isn't that fucking scary? No, it's not, because tritium is a really weak radionuclide. It actually doesn't hurt you. There's no known level of death for tritium exposure for humans, and so it'll kill mice evidently at a very, really high concentration, like
W.
But it can cause
millions,
digestive
mice.
issues at low
billions of times higher than the regulatory limit. It'll kill mice, but there's no known concentration to kill humans. I mean, it's probably not like great if
It's not good for you.
yeah, it's probably not great, but it's at any level that the public is going to be exposed to, it is not really bad. So I mean, that they will be exposed to. So they went above the notification level, so they notified the state, and then like nothing for 4 months, and they figured out like how much was leaking and like where it was coming from and all this stuff, and then they issued a press release finally, because they're like, okay, we know there's this much. Here's where it is. It's contained. We're going to clean it up now. So you're going to see a lot of trucks and a lot of dudes pumping it out. So don't freak out. And the fucking media freaked out. And so, yeah, they're shutting down like this week, next week, to replace the pipes that had a leak in it. And that's it. It's like a swimming pool worth of tritiated water, and it's not a big deal. But yeah, you can catch me tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, on the Eco Monitors channel live on YouTube, or right here on twitch.tv/Soyatl. That's Seattle without the C. Add in some soy, just like you all soyed about China when we should be talking about big tech, right? Am I right? Okay. So thank you so much for the panel. I'm going to go have dinner with my friend and have a good night. I'll be watching you probably. So have some fun in the open panel. Let's go.
Enjoy, my friend. By the way, in the near future, I
care.
want to get me, you, and Rich to do micro reactors because they've actually put one online.
You mean the one in China? There's a 100 megawatt thorium molten salt reactor. Yeah,
That one.
yeah.
Well, I was thinking more of the ones that we could recommission out of decommissioned nuclear subs because those can generate about 125 megawatts powered on plutonium and are relatively safe. So, but would be more than enough to power a small city.
That's dicey. That's a very spicy fuel, but I'm down to talk about. I'm down to teach you all about the submarine reactors and where they're the hot rods of the nuclear industry.
All right.
Oh,
so,
I know, but yeah, I was thinking that we could recommission them with uranium-238 because then it would cook much.
Wouldn't work.
Off.
It wouldn't work.
Really?
You don't put what's it like 76 octane fuel in a race car. It won't run.
Yeah. So this is the thing that I've got, and Osiris, great to have you. iCow Rich, great to have you as well.
I can see you
When
guys.
it comes to recommissioning old submarine reactors, a lot of them are pulled out when they need to be. As far as I'm aware, and this is from some folks who have been in the nuclear navy, when you get to the point where those are decommissioned, they are getting to dangerous levels of alpha contamination to where they are like molecularly unstable. Like
Brittle.
you actually, yeah.
You can fix it. You can fix it, but nothing is going to change the configuration of that reactor where it's at all suitable to civilian use. But let's hold that off. Let's like tease that out and absolutely get me, and I will talk to your people about what's going on with those recommissioned nuclear subs.
Let that be a lesson to you, by the way, because
of the size. Because
Jimmy Carter was in a horrible nuclear accident on a sub, as I recall, like where he had to like do some, like like when Spock had to fix the Enterprise or whatever, and he went into that chamber and it killed him or whatever.
It wasn't.
And so
it wasn't
and now
he was the fixer. He was the fixer that they called in to fix it.
Oh,
He didn't stay.
and look at it. And look at it now. He's dying. So it must be. There must
Wow.
be.
Dude, he's like 90 years old, isn't he?
He's 99. 99.
Oh fuck, man! If radiation makes me live to 99, give me a dose.
There was an old joke.
please
I was
don't.
referencing an old joke about who was that guy? George Burns. About when George Burns died at 101 or something like that. There was a big SNL skit about George Burns dies at 101. Let that be a lesson to you, kids. Smoking kills.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was like he smoked every day of his life. He drank every day of his life, all the way to 101. I mean,
And then it killed him.
that man's genetics
terrible.
were absolutely freaking superior. If he hadn't done all that, he may have lived to 103.
Hey, for real though, I didn't
Cautionary
realize that Michael Douglas's father, which was a big Hollywood actor for those of us that are young, he died at 103 back in 2020.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said 103, because Kirk Douglas was not a big smoker or drinker.
All right. The one thing that I will get regarding actually using naval subnuclear reactors, if you want to repurpose them at all, is that you could use them with the plutonium that would be generated from reprocessing.
Base.
Well, and I didn't realize we couldn't reuse the shell. I figured we'd have to basically, refit them. But no, the fact that they become molecular unstable, that changes it. We'd have to do a new shell, but we could repurpose the fuel.
No, you can actually fix that. Well, let's talk about it later, though.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta go. I'm gonna go
you,
shorten my lifespan. So thank you very much for a great talk.
You're going on another panel?
I mean, I'll talk to Jack about it later. I'm not going to stay. I'm sorry. I love you, Oz. I love you, Aiko. But I gotta go. So thank you so much.
Yeah, he's going to get food.
Good to see you.
So I do not blame him. Good night.
It's all my stuff on my screen. Oh no. Okay. So yeah. Goodbye.
I want to speak to you about a new organization called the Eco-Modernist Society of North America. I'm here because we are in the midst of a potentially monumental ecological crisis. It is only through a new environmentalism 2.0 that progress can be made. We believe that our only hope for human advancement and even human survival is through the exponential advance of science in the service of humanity. Ecomodernism is a new environmental paradigm which looks to reverse the fear of nuclear power and scientific progress in general. Ecology-based modernism is the most direct way to define it. Ecomodernism